Hi everybody, it's Ryan again from the NFT Art Collective, and in today's tutorial, I'm going to walk you through Maya for a complete beginner. First, just to set your expectations here, Maya is a very complicated program. It has more menus than anything I've ever seen, and I'm very familiar with a lot of audio editing, mixing software, spatial audio software, video editing, 360, 3D work, stabilization, removals. So I've done a lot of different kinds of software, but Maya really does seem to be one of the most complicated, or at least has the most parts, and definitely the most menus I've ever seen. And I think part of the reason for that is that it is a full production pipeline. You can do anything from modeling a character all the way through animations, lighting, and rendering. Today, we're not going to go that far. What we're going to work on today is taking the source files from the House of Kibaa apedemption with your Bored Ape Yacht Club ape, and we're going to import that into Maya. And then we're going to work on how you add the objects, so your ape's properties, the hats, the clothes, whatever little traits they may have, then adding the textures, right, so that they look awesome in 3D. And then we'll do lighting, a little bit of posing, and then a rendering of a still. That's all we're going to work on today, just a still image. And in fact, I think what we're going to try to do is probably just recreate basically the profile picture from a regular ape, but in 3D. I think that's the easiest thing to start with. We'll take that sort of smaller bite, and then in later episodes, we'll do some harder things. I will show you how to do animation and some more kind of complicated things like camera moves and things like that. So for today, again, this is going to take you a little bit of time. Don't feel afraid to pause the video when you need to. But I will try to walk you step by step, even if you've never used Maya, if you've never used a 3D application ever, it doesn't matter. I think you can learn this if you want to, if it's something that you're interested in. And I hope that some of you will find this interesting, even if you're not going to do this yourself. It gives you a little bit of an idea into what goes into this kind of work. It's complicated, but it's also fun. It's powerful. And let's get started. So the very first thing you want to do, if you haven't already, go to OpenSea, and you need an apedemption card. So the easiest way, search Hawk for House of Kibaa, and then choose Hawk Main, and then you'll see that they have new drops every month, and so this is going to start filling up. You have your actual membership right here, and the membership is what gives you the drops. But you don't have to be a member to buy the apedemption card. And so if you're a Bored Ape, I really do think that you should have one of these cards. I think that it future-proofs your ape for the metaverse, for 3D renders, for game engines. It's really a high-quality file, and I think you'll get use out of it, even if you just want to pay another artist. I think it would cost you $500 to $1,000 probably to get one of these made from scratch from an artist. So that's my little pitch on that. But so you're going to get an apedemption card, and then you'll follow House of Kibaa's instructions on their Discord on how to redeem this. Basically, you send this NFT from your wallet to the Hawk wallet, and they will verify that you own the Bored Ape you want the files for, and then they'll send you those files. And so you're going to get a zip folder, and that'll be the first thing, is to unzip that folder to wherever you want, and that has all of the assets that we're going to be using today. And then the second thing you need to do is you need to download Maya 2022. That's the newest version. That's the one that I'm using. You could try another version if you want. Some of the things may not look the exact same as mine. I'm doing 2022 because I've never used Maya before. And so it felt like to me I should use the newest version. But if you've used powerful production software like this before, you might know that there's some disadvantages to doing that. It might be more stable to be on an older version. You might just want to go to 2019. And studios will definitely stick with older versions for a long time in some cases because it's more stable, because they have their plugins and everything written for that version. But I am going to be using the newest version, and I'll show you some things to kind of avoid some of the little buggy behavior that I've seen so far. But overall, the experience has been pretty good, so I'm going to stick with 2022 for this tutorial. So yeah, just download 2022. There's a free trial, 30 days, fully functional trial, right? You don't have to enter credit card information or anything like that. Just your email and some contact info, and then you can download it from autodesk.com, Maya 2022. All right. So once you have Maya 2022 installed, go ahead and run that. You can just type in Maya hit enter. This takes a couple of minutes to load. There's some options and things you can do to kind of cut this load time down depending on which features of Maya you're going to be using, but I've just been sticking with the default. It usually does take a couple of minutes to open up. So I'll come right back once that's open up. And the other thing you can do is go ahead and get that folder with all of your assets. So once you have Maya running, go ahead and click New to start a new session. One of the things you might want to do is save even from the beginning and then save often. And we'll talk more about this later, but it does seem like there's a difference to me in the behavior between doing a save as and then the increment and save. So if you have a file named Bored Ape and you do increment and save, it'll do Bored Ape 01. And then you do it again, 02, 03. It just keeps adding numbers. But I had a file somehow become corrupt, a project file, and I could not open it up again. It was version 7. I also could not open 6 or 5 or 4 or 3 or 2. I couldn't open any of them. And so I had to go back to a totally different one. And so since then, I've gone to doing save as quite often, and that's what I would do if I were you. Some combination, at least, of the two. So I'll go ahead and do save scene, and, just call it whatever you want, but I'm going to do this Maya tutorial 2. It's actually my first, but I'm scrapping it, and I'll do Maya tutorial 1 v2. I scrapped my first one because I wanted to make this easier and simpler to follow for you, and I'll do harder things in a different video. Okay, so this is Maya. Let me show you around just a little bit. This should be the default view. If you go up in the top right, you'll see the workspace view. I'm on Maya Classic. So if I were you, I would do Maya Classic as well. I'll show you how to kind of make your own custom panels and things later, but for now, I would definitely start with Maya Classic. There are a lot of tools over here, and there's a lot of menus. I'll show you some of those things in detail as we move through. I think the most important thing right now to look at first is this view window. Top left says view here, and then the outliner right here. Okay. And if for some reason these don't show up, and they should show up, especially when you go to Maya Classic, you may have to search on where to find these panels. Because again, there's just so many menus here. Like again, you can go to workspaces from up here in this Windows menu as well. Anyway, I don't want to get too far off. So the first thing is this outliner. The outliner basically shows you all of the pieces that are in your scene. So remember that this is a 3D scene, right? You can see you basically have a floor here, although it's not really a floor. It's just a grid to show you the 0 coordinate, right? So this is the center of our scene, but there isn't really a floor yet. But this is the view. So as you drop objects in, you'll see them in this view right here. Sorry, let me go full screen here so now you can see the bottom. On the bottom here, this is for animation. We'll look into this later. In fact, we probably don't even need to touch this in the first episode, so you don't really have to worry about this. But as you add objects, you'll see the objects in here in the view, the scene view, and you'll also see them in the outliner. And so you can tell that right now, there are actually a few objects that have already been created. There are some default cameras, perspective, top, front, and side. We'll talk about that more later. A default light set and a default object set. You don't even really need to know what those mean or do. And I don't really know exactly what they do, to be quite honest. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is start dragging and dropping things in here. There's some other panels that we'll look at later, and I actually have customized this part a little bit, so we'll have to go into details about that. But you should have your outliner and your view window. Those two things should exist for you. All right. So the first thing is to open this folder. You've unzipped a folder, and now you should have something that looks like this. Okay. And I'm using 2, monitors, and it definitely helps to have 2 or more. 3, honestly, if you had them set up right, would be pretty nice for Maya. But 2, and you can get along with 1. All right, so you've got your folder. Go inside the folder, and the first thing you're going to see is a bunch of folders. Yours is going to look a little different than mine because our apes have different traits. And the way that they do this is almost like, generative. And so you're going to have a folder that's filled with your ape's traits. For instance, this one has a striped T, the World War II pilot helmet, and bloodshot eyes. it also has pink fur, right? So you'll have a folder that says blue or noise or whatever it is, gold maybe, if you're lucky. And you may have different things in these as well, sunglasses, cigarette, whatever. But they'll all show up in this folder. Now, we all have a folder called Game Ape files and Print Ape files. For now, we can disregard Print Ape. That is for 3D printing, and we're not going to be doing that right now, so just forget about it. Game Ape files. This is a common folder that we all have. If you double-click to go inside of this, you'll see a few things. The first thing you'll see is an FBX, which is an object, a 3D object file, just one of the particular kinds of files, like an MP4 video versus an MOV, just different formats. And so the Maximo, though, is actually for a program. It's actually called Miximo. It's a bit of a spelling mistake. Miximo is for animation. We'll get into that in episode 2 of this Maya tutorial. But for now, we're going to go into rigged. So rigged means that it has like joints. It's got facial expressions that you can pull. You can close the eyes, open the mouth, you change all kinds of things because it basically has a structure like joints and controls. And so that's the one that we want, right? So all you have to do, this is already made for Maya. That's why Maya is the best program to use for these files. Other ones will work, but they require a little bit more effort. And I think that Maya overall is going to get you the highest quality. Some people might argue with that, and that's fine. But so all you have to do is click on the rig and drag it and drop it into your scene in the view window. There's a couple of other ways you can do this, but this works just fine in my experience. So we're going to drag and drop. And it's not doing anything. Okay, here it is. Here's why. This is real dumb. I'm in the zip file. I'm not in the actual folder. So be really careful about that. I've actually seen someone else ask that question. So I made that mistake on purpose, just so you might fix that if you encounter it yourself. Okay, so now we're in the actual unzipped folder. And we're going to go to the Game Ape files and then into rigged. And here we go. Drag and drop into your scene. And now it works perfectly because Maya can actually read it. And down at the bottom left, you will see 2%. You get this little loading bar. And the length of time it takes to import a model depends on a lot of things. I assume it depends on your system, right? CPU speed, GPU, maybe RAM. Also, perhaps your disk speed. And obviously the complexity of the model itself. Here we are. We can close this window or minimize it. We're going to need that folder later. Okay, you can see that by default, it's kind of cut off a little bit. So the first sort of lesson that we're going to do right here are the actual controls for Maya. And the cool thing is that almost every 3D program, like if you followed my tutorial to build a virtual gallery in Mozilla Hubs, or I've got a gallery in Somnium Space, I've dabbled in Unity a couple of times, and the controls in there, they're all pretty similar. Even Miximo. These controls on how to navigate this 3D space are similar. So even if it feels weird at first, you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. They all involve, almost all, involve using the Alt key. So this is definitely a PC tutorial. I'm sure there's an equivalent for Mac. Maybe it's the Command key. I don't remember. I don't know. Look it up. But for now, we're going to do Alt all the time. So it's Alt and then your mouse. And then a combination of different mouse buttons. And those are sort of like your camera controls. It's the way you spin a scene around, zoom in and out, move it left, right, up and down. So these are very important. And I'm also going to be showing you some hotkeys later, but for now, we'll just do those. Alt, here we go. So the first one is Alt and left click, and you're going to hold both. So hold Alt, click with your left mouse button and hold it, and you see that the cursor changes to this sort of circular thing. And if I go left and right, I can spin them around. If I go up and down, I can spin it around that way. So it spins the scene around, I guess would be the right way to say this. We'll see what it does again, similar but a little bit different when you start doing cameras and lights later. But that's a way to kind of look around. Then if you see like here, if we wanted to look head on, we need to drag the scene up. Right? Pretend it's a camera. We need to have the camera go up now. So to do that, again, Alt, Now click and hold the middle mouse button. And that then allows you to move straight up and down or left and right. And you can do sort of horizontal as well. But it doesn't spin the scene at all. And it doesn't zoom in and out, right? So that's what this control does. Alt and middle mouse button. And then finally, we have Alt. That was the wheel I hit right there. Well, let's talk about that. The mouse wheel in and out also is a zoom in and out. So that would be your sort of third control, zoom in and out. If that's not like fine enough for you, the other way to do that is with Alt. Now click and hold the right mouse button. And this gives you a finer control, and it sort of zooms into like the center as well. So it depends on where you're aimed. So if I like aim up toward the head by holding Alt and then left mouse click and drag, and then maybe I want to zoom in, and then that was the right mouse button. Now I'm just holding Alt the whole time here. Now I'm going to click the middle mouse button and drag up. So now I'm kind of looking at him from down below. And if I use the left mouse button while I'm holding Alt, I can circle around him. So this takes a little bit of practice and sort of just control to figure out how to quickly navigate this. And I'm sure a pro would be really fast at zipping in and out, being exactly where they want to be. You'll have to practice that a little bit. And it might even be worth looking up a tutorial on the controls in Maya and the camera controls. But what's really cool is that you can use this in this perspective view, which is the view that we happen to be in right now. If you look down here, you can see that it says PERSP, perspective. So that's the camera that we're looking through in this particular window. So that's the perspective camera over here. And we're going to add other cameras later, but for now, that's really all you need to know about cameras. The cool thing is that these controls and this way that we're kind of manipulating this 3D environment also works for objects and for cameras and lights, because cameras and lights are just objects too. This really is a 3D scene, so you can think of it like a movie set, right? And you are basically building a set. You could think of it as a little model, right? The way people build clay models and then light them and take a picture. That's essentially what we're doing, except we're doing it in 3D, right? That's all this is. So that's the first part. We have our ape, and he is right here. So before we get into more details on the controls and how we can manipulate objects, we need to add in the other objects. So go ahead and open up that folder that we had before, not the zip file, the one that's been unzipped, and go to the root. And there's different ways you can do this, but I just go from the top to the bottom. So the first thing is the striped T. So double click, and what we're looking for here is the game FBX file. Again, we don't want the print file, but you can print the t-shirt. That's cool. We want the game file. So click and drag the game file into the scene. It doesn't even really matter where you drop it. Just drop it in and you'll see that it goes right on the model. And so when you use this Maya file, everything will drop into place. I mean, you might want to tweak the placement a little bit just sort of for aesthetics, subjectivity in the art, but you don't have to. Everything lands in place. In the next episode, for mix mode, we'll see that we have to tweak things sometimes. So that's the t-shirt. Next, we're going to go to the pilot helmet. Double click into that folder. Click and drag in the FBX game file. And you'll see that it straps on this very nice fighter helmet. All right. And then go back to that folder again. What else do I have? Well, I have bloodshot eyes. This one, actually, I haven't seen before. These are just textures, so we're going to get into this in a minute. So actually, for this ape, that's it. This ape only has two objects. It has the shirt and the fighter helmet. It has a couple of other traits, sort of, but those we're going to take care of later when we do the fur and the eyes. But that's it. This is not a fancy ape. So if you have other little traits that are in here, you'll have other folders, and you do the exact same thing. Just drag and drop the game FBX file into your scene. Now, we definitely want to save at this point. So I'm going to do save scene as, and I'm going to say Maya tutorial 1v2. I'm going to add underscore all objects. Okay? You can do this however you want, but for me, that lets me know that I've got this file that has all the objects. Next, I'll save one called, again, do save scene as. Well, I'll wait. I'll do another one in a second. There's one more thing we need to do. Now that we have all the objects in, we need to attach the objects to the ape. So it seems like they're attached because when you drop them in, they land in place. But that's not actually the case. If we were to move this ape around, the objects would not follow. Okay, so the objects have to be attached to the ape. And it works differently for clothes, like shirts or a dress, the toga maybe, than it does for all of the other objects. So first we're going to start with what you do on the other objects. And so what we have here, I'm going to move the camera around again. I'm doing Alt and the left mouse button to spin it around. And I'm kind of aiming towards the head. And now I'm going to hold the right mouse button while I'm still holding Alt. Zoom in. Now middle mouse button, drag up. And that gives me a nice close-up of this helmet. So I can show you, I'll still wait on controls. Sorry. Let's just attach this helmet to the ape. So the first thing that you want to do is click actually, let's go over here to the outliner. I'm going to show you one more thing in the outliner in more detail before we move on. If you look at the objects, when we drug in the t-shirt and the World War II pilot's helmet, we now have new objects, right? And you can see these right here. When you click on t-shirt, over here, you can see this mesh that's lit up. It selects the t-shirt. When you select the pilot's helmet, it selects the mesh for the pilot's helmet. So that's how you can choose different objects. Now, the actual object for the ape itself is more complicated because it has a lot of parts and it has rigs. And you've got an arm that then has a wrist and a hand, and the hand has fingers, and the fingers have joints. And so that's all a lot more complicated. It's a hierarchy. It's a parent object with children underneath, and those children can have children too. It's like a folder with subfolders. And so this right here is like the entire ape. But if you click the plus button right here, it'll open up. And so what we want to do is click in this little middle right here, to make this window in the outliner a little bit bigger. We need to go into the geometry, okay? The geometry is the actual body of the ape. And if you open that folder, you see that the geometry folder also has its children. You've got eyes, a body, and a mouth. And the reason it's split up like that is that there is a different texture for each of those things. The eyes are literally different objects than the body. They have to have a different texture. Same goes for the inner mouth, the teeth and the tongue, and then the body itself is different. So you see if I click body right here, let me swing this around, again at Alt and left mouse and then middle mouse and zoom in a little bit. So if I choose the body, you see how the eyes here are not highlighted. They're not selected as part of the mesh because they are different. They need to act independently and they have different textures as well. And so if I click on like eye right, well, only the mesh for the right eye. If I click eye left, only the mesh for the left eye, right? So each is a distinct object. They're, in their own way, they're attached to a parent object, but they're individual objects. That's not the same for like the nostrils. That's just part of the face. But the body, the inner mouth, and the eyes, they will have different textures, so they're different objects. So what we're concerned with right now is well, what do we want to attach the object to? And so that's something you have to think about. If you want to attach the fighter helmet, you actually want to attach it not to the overall body, but you want to attach it to the controller for the head. Because as the head rotates, right, we want the pilot's helmet to rotate with the head. Like the body could rotate, right? I mean, you could move your lower body, your shoulders, and not move your head. And so what we're looking at here is that we want to attach the helmet to the controller for the head. I think that's the proper way to explain it. I've zoomed in a little bit more closely, and I'm going to click on first the controller. So this is the controller for the head. Click on the yellow line. You'll see it turn green, and you'll see the facial rig over here under group and main become selected. Okay, and so then you're going to hold down control and click the object that we want to attach to that controller. In this case, the World War II pilot's helmet. So I'm holding control. I click on that. Okay. So now I have these two things connected. All you have to do is hold down the space bar and it brings up this menu. You need to have your cursor in the view window. Hold down the space bar and then go down here to constrain. I'm going to click on constrain and also hold my left mouse button. I'm not sure if your menu will work like that, but for me it does. And then I'm going to click parent, or I'm going to let go of my left mouse button. And that parents the two together. Okay? So to show you that, I'm going to click off again. And then I'm going to click on the controller for the head right here. Okay? Now, this sphere is what controls the head. So if I see how they light up as you go along these different axes. And so if you go over this horizontal one and click and hold, you can rotate the ape's head right and left, right and left. And so that, what I usually do is like let go, and then I do Control Z to undo until I'm really getting into posing. If you go over this axis right here, highlight it, click and hold, you can look up and down, right? There are other ways to use this sort of in a more advanced, like freeform kind of way where you can really look all around, but for now I'm not going to talk about that. Again, Control Z to undo. And so right there I basically proved that these two things are constrained. The helmet is now constrained to the controller for the head. Okay, so these are successfully parented together. Now what I'm going to do is hold Alt, right mouse button, zoom out, go down a little bit. The next thing is the t-shirt. Now the t-shirt works a little differently. If you have any clothing, we have to use a different method. Still not particularly hard though. What we want to do is come over here and click on the object first, the clothes, okay? So click on the t-shirt or the toga, the dress, whatever it is, and you'll see that the mesh for that is selected. Now hold on Control and click on body, because that is what we're going to wrap this piece of clothing around, the body. Okay, so let's go over that one more time. I'm going to click off. Again, we want to choose the object that we want to attach. So this time we click the t-shirt. It selects the mesh right here, right? Then under the main group, and then under the geometry child, the body is what we're looking for because we want to attach this shirt to the body. So we've clicked on shirt, and then I'm going to do Control, click on body, and now it selects the body. Okay, so that means we're going to wrap the shirt around the body. To do that, go up to the very top and find the menu for deform. The first time we've been in the menus, we'll be in them more later. Click deform, and you want to go down until you find wrap. Okay, that's all you do. Go up to deform and then wrap. Click on that. And sometimes this takes just a minute, but that wraps it onto the body. Again, I'm going to click away, deselect. Now, how can we prove that this is attached? I won't get into all the complicated controllers over here, but you see this one right here, the one with the arrows. So if you click, oh, yeah, you got to be careful. Sometimes it chooses the object behind it. You may have to rotate your scene. So you can click right here on this plus, right? And then if I change to W, which is the movement, it's this tool over here actually, and you'll see if you change the menu buttons, these tools change, right? This is like translate, I think it is. I was hoping the name was going to come up. Mouse over, no. Okay, never mind. Anyway, click W and then go on the blue, click and hold, and if you move him forward so that he looks all crazy, move him backward, you can see that the shirt is now attached. Again, undo. Okay, at this point, I do want to add one more, or maybe even two more objects to show you how things can be a little bit more complicated. So let's add something, let's do earrings. So I'm going to go into my folders, and a different ape of mine has gold studs. So I'm going to look that up, studgame.fbx, and I'm going to drag that into the scene. And you'll see that it adds an earring right here. And let's say I want to add two. So I think there's a couple ways to do this, but there's probably a duplicate. I should probably know that, but I'm going to do stud 1, and then you can just drag it in again. And I swear there's probably a hotkey for that. I should know it. But now you can just call this stud 2. Okay. Now, notice that right now, the controller is already active because we'd hit W earlier, and we've got stud 2 selected. And so if I go over here to the red arrow, it's hard to see, but if you zoom in, you can see it better like this, maybe. The red arrow moves it in that direction, so I'm going to click and hold and drag it over here. Now I got to rotate the scene and drag it over here. Okay, so for now that's fine. It's on the left ear. And there are some ways to turn all these controllers off so that the scene is more clean. I don't really want to get into that, make it any more confusing than it needs to be. They don't really get that much in the way if you just rotate the camera. So we've added the earrings, and I'm going to do a little bit finer placement on the earrings. So let's zoom in and move around a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to move this. You can click on the object, but if it's hard because there's so much going on, you can just click on the object over here, right? Stud 1. And I'm going to move this. I want it to be somewhat realistic, but I also want it to kind of hang off the earlobe. So maybe something like that. You can take a look, zoom out, see if that's what you want. It's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay. And I want to show you this because it's interesting because we're going to attach it to a different controller. And it's actually the ear controller. You don't just want to attach it to the head. I mean, you might be able to do that, but what happens when the ear moves? And so like right now, if you choose the controller for the ear by clicking on this ring, and let's say we, I don't know, E to go to the rotate tool, and let's rotate the ear, like in, right? Maybe that doesn't affect where it is right now so much, but like we'll put it up higher. Control Z. So let's move the earring. W again for that other controller. Translate or whatever they call it. You'll get used to the controls, and then again the blue one pulls it out. So okay, so yeah, he has this perhaps somewhat questionable earring up here. Now if you click on the ring, the controller for the ear, and again, let's do E for rotate, and let's rotate this. See how now it doesn't rotate, right? So Control Z. So what you want to do, deselect, select the controller that you're targeting, right? Select that. Now, stud 1, control click stud 1, come back over here, hold the spacebar down, and then constrain to the parent. All right? Now, when you click the controller for the ear, and then you move the ear, the earring moves with it, right? Okay. So that's cool. Let's say I don't want the second earring. I've decided I don't like it. Well, I don't even really like this one, but whatever. I'm going to click on stud 2 and just delete, and then it's gone from the scene. The only thing that you can't delete like that, apparently, are lights. We'll get into that later, but don't delete lights because mine will probably crash. So that's weird. I'll show you how to deal with that. Good time now, probably to save, because we haven't saved in a long time. And again, I would save more often, especially when you're getting used to Maya. If you make mistakes and you can't undo very effectively, or if you get confused, it's always nice to go back to a previous version. And so for now, what you want to do is we'll go to the save scene as, and now I'm going to call this all objects _ attached, because that's kind of the next step, is that we attached everything. Okay. All right. So this is cool. Again, you could add other objects, but they all pretty much work like this. I don't think you'll run into many troubles that you can't fix by adjusting the position of the object, like we did with the earring. So maybe for sunglasses, you might have to do that. For some traits that are very complicated on the head, like if you had like a blindfold and a hat, those might crash a little bit, kind of go into each other. And so you just have to do sort of a fine adjustment of the positioning before you attach it to the head controller. So now we have our ape and we have all of our objects on the ape. The next thing we want to do is start adding textures. This part it's really not hard, but it's definitely not hard. It's just tedious and boring, and it's one of these processes that you could definitely make a mistake if you sort of zone out in the wrong way. And so we're going to be careful as we go through these next steps, okay? If you've seen my Marmoset tutorial, it's way easier in Marmoset. I don't know. They need to fix it, I think. I think they need to fix Maya because this part is, I don't know. It seems ridiculous. But regardless, here we go. It's not hard. Just be careful. Hold my Alt, right, move in a little bit. Because the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to add textures to the helmet. And so there's a couple ways that you can do this. But if you go over to the pilot's helmet, you can click it here so that you definitely have selected the pilot's helmet. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And what I want to do is find a part where there's not a bunch of controllers and stuff. I've got the pilot's helmet selected. Okay, now mouse over on top of it and right click and hold. Okay, so now go all the way down to assign new material. All right, I'll do that one more time. Click out. Sometimes you can click on the object itself and you're fine. Other times you just want to click on it over here. But it doesn't matter. Right click and hold. Drag down to assign new material. And then either click or release. However your controller scheme is set up. Now, we're going to do the exact same thing every time here. From here on out, it's the exact same thing every time. And even assigning the material is the same. So look under Arnold and then click Shader. Come down here and choose AI Standard Surface. If you want to drag this out to see the whole thing, it's AI Standard Surface. It's the one at the bottom, or towards the bottom. It looks different than the ones around it. It's got the little A, right? And the shading's different. So click on AI Standard Surface. You'll see that it changes the look instantly. The lighting in this view is not full quality, but it gives you an idea of what's going on. And as soon as you assign that material, that texture, it changes. Okay. So now we need to introduce ourselves to another window that we hadn't looked at yet. And that's over here. Okay. This attribute editor. The attribute editor does what it says. It shows you all of these different attributes, all of these settings, these things that you can tweak for whatever object you happen to choose. And so right now I'm on the World War II pilot's helmet. So all of these things in some way say World War II pilot, World War II pilot. If I click on the stud, now it's the attributes in this attribute editor tab for the stud, right? So that's an important thing to know, the attribute editor. If for some reason it's not on yours, I think it's under Windows, General Editors. Yeah, attribute editor. So if for some reason you get lost, you don't have it on your screen, you can click that, and then it'll pop up as its own window. And then with these windows, if you like click and hold a tab, it's a lot like these other programs. Like, you know, by default, if you opened up the attribute editor, I think it opens in a floating window like this. But then if you click and hold up here in the actual title of it, then you can drag it around into different positions. Above this set, to the left of this one, to the right of this one. You can do all kinds of things. I want it up here as a tab in this window. So what I'm going to do, oops, I'm dragging around too much, but I want it as a tab in this window. So I'm going to click and hold up here and then drag until it looks like it's not there, but there. So you see that blue line around that window? That's what I want it to be part of. And then the blue bar up to the kind of top right shows you that you're going to make it a tab. So I let go and there it is. If you click and drag, you can rearrange them as well. The attribute editor, very important. We'll come back to this a lot. But for now, we're working with the pilot's helmet. So go back over here, click on pilot's helmet. This all changes to pilot's helmet. Now, in the attribute editor, under the tab down here, World War II pilot shape. Okay. That's the one that by default it's on. This one, the first one, you'll actually maybe use more. This first tab here, transform attributes, these show you the position of the object. And we'll get into that more later. But the important thing right now, under the attribute editor for the World War II pilot's helmet, is this tab on the right, the one that's not named with World War II. And the reason that it doesn't have that in the name is that this is the new thing that we added. It was the AI standard surface. So it makes sense, right? This is the surface It's one of the attributes of this pilot helmet. So click on the tab AI Standard Surface 1. And the first thing that I like to do, I'll go ahead and let it say 1, but right here I'm going to underscore World War II. So that now instantly lets me know if I get confused for any reason, this is the surface, because we're going to use this AI Standard Surface tool, this material, over and over. And so this customizes it and lets me know, well, it was number 1, yes, but it's the World War II helmet. Okay, here's the tedious part. Open up your folder. And let's go to the root. I need to go back to my other ape. And then go into the object that we were working on. So in this case, the pilot's helmet. Now, we need to go to the Arnold Textures folder. All right, also misspelled here. Double click to go into Arnold Textures. Arnold is the advanced renderer inside of Maya. The thing that makes it look pretty. Has really cool lighting effects. It looks great to me. Very professional for sure. And I'm a complete amateur, so if I can get stuff looking as good as I can, obviously if you're better, you can do some really cool stuff. So this is the folder that we're going to be using. And so there's a couple ways that you can do this, but we're going to come back to this in a minute. In Marmoset, you just drag and drop. Like literally, just drag this over here, drag this over here, drag this over here. Watch how much longer this takes. Here's what we have to do. There are 4 files, okay? The texture files. They control things like the way, basically it's the way that it looks, right? It's the color, the pattern, it's the roughness, the shininess, how much it reflects light, how much it absorbs light, whether it's flat or if it has parts that stick out. So this is really important to getting the look right. You need to get this part right. So under AI Standard Surface tab, you have these different drop-down menus. I'm going to close them all. Again, be sure that you're in the right one. World War II, right here. AI Standard Surface. Under the base category, we need to do 2 of these. We need to do the color and the metalness. Again, for every object, it's going to be the same. Color, metalness. Then under specular, roughness. And then finally down at the bottom under geometry, the bump mapping or the normal map. Those are the 4 things on every object that you're going to have to plug in. You basically have to drag and drop without being able to drag and drop these surfaces to the right one. So we're going to start with color. So right here's color. Come over to the right. Look at this little checkerboard. You got to be careful about this. It's the second one. Color's the second in this category. So I'm going to click on the second one over here. It's going to open up this menu. Again, the good thing is that for every object, we're going to do the exact same thing. Just click here where it says File, because we're going to be pointing this to a file. Okay, again, it kind of changes look. Don't worry about that yet. But here you'll see that now we have file attributes, because now we're in the menu for that file itself. Okay, the file that is the color texture. So under image name, click on this folder. I should have copied and pasted that that folder from earlier. That's what I had meant to do, but I didn't. So let me find that real quick. Okay, back into the proper folder where I've got all my 3D assets. So we want to go into the pilot helmet and then Arnold Textures. And then just click on the one that says base color. Because again, remember, we were looking at the color and plugging in this color file for the surface, the AI surface shader. Now right here, you'll see this, if you can kind of abstractly think about this, this is the helmet, right? Like these are part of maybe the ear cups or something, but it looks like leather, right? And this is the image like unwrapped. So this is the texture that actually wraps around our object. And then click open. And now here's a little shortcut that I've sort of figured out. This is going to fill in that file, the actual file itself. So copy this. Okay. And this is speed things up a little bit and make this a little less annoying. Not perfectly, but a little less. We're going to use that in a minute. For now, we need to do one more thing. And you only have to do this Well, actually, you have to do it with every texture. The color space, you need to change from sRGB to raw. If you have an older version of Maya, it doesn't have these submenus right here. It actually just has all of these in one long menu. So you'll just click here, and then I mouse wheeled all the way down and chose raw. But in this case, you have to go to utility and then raw. Okay, so choose raw. And then do ignore color space file rules. That's why this yellow box comes up. And so if you check this first and then do raw, that might make it a little bit easier on you. Okay, so this affects the color space. We're not going to talk about that too much right now. If you've done photography or video, you might know what this means. But to get the best, I think, quality right now, just do this. For every texture you add, ignore the color space file rules and change the color space to raw. Okay, and again, we had copied this as well. So now, I think the easiest way to do this is just click either on the object or over here. We're going to go back to the helmet. Be sure that you're on the standard surface for the helmet. Now, if you look at color, see how the object has changed here? It doesn't look like the checkerboard anymore. If you click this, it'll take us back to that file. So if you make a mistake or something, that's how you get back to change the file, or to change if you forgot to do this. Okay, again, I'm going to click away, click on the helmet, and then you'll see we're back into this menu, AI Standard Surface. Now we need to do the metalness, the bottom one in this top category. Click on the checkerboard. Now, again, choose File right here. Now we get this new window where we plug in the file. Here's, I think, the fastest way to do it. Copy and paste what you just did, but then where it says base color, just change this to metalness, because that is the file name. It's in the exact same directory, exact same prefix, but with metalness as the suffix. Okay, click away. Then ignore color space file rules and choose raw. Okay, so that adds the metalness. All right. Now, you might be asking yourself, why don't we see any of these things? The reason that we do not see them is that we do not have textures turned on right now. If you have a machine that's really slow or old, you might not want to work with textures on all the time. On my machine, it doesn't seem to hurt it, so I can either click up here, which turns the textures on. You can see that now. It'll look a little rough. It's not going to be as high quality as it will be later, but that's what it looks like. If you click this again, you turn the textures off. The other way to do this is with your hotkeys. If you press 6, it turns textures on. 5 turns them off. 4 goes all the way back to wireframe. So I like to work with the textures on. It's kind of cool to see what they look like. So there's that. Click on the helmet. We have 2 more to add. We did the color right here. We did the metalness right here. Now, under specular, we need to do the roughness. The third one in this category right here. Click on the checkerboard. Now click on File. We'll start going a little faster on this because this, again, is quite repetitive. Again, you can just copy and paste. And instead of base color, now we do roughness. You got to be a little bit careful because this last one doesn't match the name perfectly to what Maya says, but it's base color, metalness, then roughness. Again, ignore color space, change it to raw. Sometimes you'll see it change a little bit too when you change the color space, even in this preview. And then again, click the helmet. Now, be careful you don't change any of these. You could mess with these settings. We're not going to get into that. Geometry. This is the only one that's a little bit different, sort of. So pay careful attention here. Under bump mapping, okay, the second one on this, click the checkerboard for bump mapping. Again, choose file. That part's the same. This is where it gets a little different. I can't explain why. I just know from House of Kibaa tutorial that you need to do tangent space normals here. So under the 2D bump attributes, change use as to tangent space normals. Again, I do not know why, but that is what you need to do. Then you'll click up here on the top. This kind of link takes you to the other window that it's linked to. Now we can do the same thing as before. Under image name, copy and paste, change base color to normal. And if you delete the period, be sure to add it back. Click enter. Now you'll see it really change. It looks weird right here where both halves are different, but when you ignore color space, change this to raw, you'll see that now it looks good. So it is pretty dark. but that looks nice. You can see the leather material, you can see the cool stitching, and so that looks pretty rad. All right, that's just the first object. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick break and then be back. What I want to do is I'm going to move faster. I'm going to keep recording this. If you don't want to watch the rest of these objects, you don't have to, because it is literally the exact same thing, but we've got to do the eyes, the inner mouth, the earring, and the shirt. Oh, and the fur. So we have to do that exact same process. Add the new material, the AI standard surface, and then one by one, plug in each of the 4 files. The base color, the roughness, the metalness, and the normal. And then our ape will look really good from head to toe. So that's what we're going to do next. And if you don't want to do that, skip ahead to... So not going to lie, this next part sucks. I don't like it. I feel like there's got to be a faster way somehow. I think, though, that would have to rely on a script or a plugin. That's one of the things that's cool about Maya, that you can do scripts and plugins. And that's why some of these big production companies still use Maya. But in this case, there isn't a faster way that I've found. So we just got to do this by hand. Be careful here. There are a couple of things that speed it up, but I mean, not much. You might want to watch the next 1 or 2 of these that I do, but otherwise skip ahead to that time that I just told you if you don't like this. All right, I like to go kind of from top to the bottom. So I'm going to click on the earring and then be sure that it's selected over here. Yep. Right click. Hold, drag down to assign new material. Let go, choose shader under Arnold, and then AI standard surface down here, the one with the A. Over here, immediately rename it underscore earring. That way I know that AI standard surface 2 is the earring. And you'll notice that by default, these are open just like they were in the last one. So that's kind of cool, I guess. Under color, the second one under base, color, click on the checkerboard. Okay. Again, click on file. All right. Then image name. So I think the fastest way to do this, because it's a different object now and it's a different folder, is to click on the folder, copy and paste what you had from before, but then you can delete like however far back you need to go. So you basically would need to go back to your root folder because you don't want the pilot helmet anymore. So delete that and click enter, and then just, pick the other, or you can see it actually shows you what's in that directory. That's cool. So actually for me, I need to go back one further. Oh, I just found that thing out. So if I hit backspace, that's cool. All right, so 2934. I'm going to go into that folder to my gold stud, Arnold textures, and I want the base color. Cool. Click open. Now, this part, be careful here. Again, copy and paste this now, because this is the new one that you want to be pasting on. You don't want to paste the old materials from the helmet. So copy this gold stud, right? Okay, that was our color. And then again, ignore color space and raw. And just do it. Click on the earring. Now you see there, it did something kind of weird. It didn't choose, you see, this menu doesn't look the same. If it doesn't, you're in the wrong tab on the attribute editor, right? We're in this shape tab. We need to be in the AI standard surface 2 earring tab. So click on that tab instead. Another way to find that actually is if you click on the earring and then right click, you can do material attributes and it'll take you to that window. Although then it just kind of changed. No, we're back to normal. Anyway, that's something you can do if you want. But sorry, just click on stud and we did color. So that's why it's clicked here. Now metalness, the bottom one in this top category. Click on the checkerboard, click file, image name. Copy and paste what we just did, except we want the gold stud, not base color, but we want the metalness. All right, ignore color space. And metalness, I've noticed, is something that doesn't really look very good until we get lighting in. So don't be afraid if it turns all black all of a sudden. We'll look at that later. But ignore the color space and do raw. Be sure that it was the metalness for the gold stud. If you paste something wrong, it'll actually give you a warning in yellow. if you have like a file that doesn't exist, but not if you paste the wrong one, right? Like it doesn't know you want metalness here, so you got to be careful. Click on the earring. If you wanted to check again, you would click on this, and it would take you to that, so you could check that you did the right file, metalness. Okay. Click out, click on the earring again. Okay, we did the color and the metalness. Now the roughness. Click on the third one here, checkerboard, roughness. Click File, copy and paste, change our last to roughness. .png. Okay, hit enter, ignore color space, utility raw. All right, one more. Click on the earring. Now mouse down, bump mapping. Click the checkerboard. Again, click File. Now a little different. Use as under 2D bump attributes, tangent space normals. Click this top one to go back to the file. Copy and paste. And this is the normal. Enter. And then ignore and raw. So again, skip forward if you want, but that's what it takes for each one. We did the helmet. We did the earring. Now we need to do the eyes. We can do it just once and then copy it to the other eye. I'll show you that. Click on this eye, right click, assign new material, shader, AI standard surface. All right. Again, rename it. We'll just do eyes. I'll show you it'll be for both. Okay, up here, color, click. Now, this is in a slightly different location, but again, click File, and then search the folder, copy and paste where we were. But now you want to go back to the root folder that you unzipped. Oops. Let's see if we put that slash in. That's cool. So if you put the slash in at the end, it'll actually show you the other ones. So what we want to go to is the game ape files and then eyes. Okay, that's where you will normally find the color of your eyes. So game ape files, default texture, then eyes. Oops, not inner mouth, eyes. Eyes, Arnold textures, default eyes, okay? But mine is different, right? This one actually has the bloodshot eyes. So let me go to that ape and bloodshot. Arnold textures. Okay. Ooh. So this is actually mislabeled. It says blue beams, but it is the bloodshot eyes. So I'm going to choose base color. And that'll go in here and then probably see this change. Yeah, a little bit. You can kind of see it. Very dark still. But again, ignore color space. Go to raw. It might change a little. Yeah, a little bit better. Okay, now copy this. Okay, because we got to do the other things for the eye. Click on the eye. Oh, see how it's all weird again? That means the eye's got a lot more going on. It's got its own rigging and stuff. So what we want to do here, we just can't see the right tab because there's too many tabs. So you can make this bigger, or this little arrow right here, just keep clicking it, and eventually you'll see AI Standard Surface 3 eyes. Click that. Now we're back to where we need to be. We did the color, now we need the metalness. Click on that, File, copy and paste. There we go. And then ignore color space, and then raw. Okay. Now click on the eye again. We did color, metalness, roughness now. Click on that. File, copy, paste, roughness. It's a little trickier when I'm talking, questioning myself whether I did the last one correctly, but we'll find out in a second. Click on metalness just to be sure that I changed that. No, look at that, I didn't. See? Trying to do too much at once. Change that to metalness. I knew there was something I didn't do right. I did do raw though. Click off, click on again. Now we need to do the final one down here. Bump mapping, click that. Again, file. All right, change this to tangent space normals. Back here, Now normal. Okay, ignore color space and raw. Now, we can do the other eye much more easily. Click on the other eye, right click, and instead of assigning a new material, do assign existing material. Okay, go to eyes and either click or let go. And now, okay, good. Definitely a good time to save. In fact, we should have earlier. We need to save scene as. And now, instead of all objects and attached, I'm going to get rid of all that and just call this textured. Because that is what we're doing, and by the time we're done with this version, it will be textured. So we have the helmet, the earring, the eyes, inner mouth. Inner mouth is a little harder. You can, I think that's still the easiest way, though, instead of having to go through all this stuff. I mean, you could just, if you've already got it open, just click inner mouth, or you can zoom in and click the mouth. Same thing, though, right click, assign new material. Shader, AI standard surface. Right, rename it. Mouth. Go up to the top. Color. File. Click the folder. Okay, again, the first time you do a new object, you go like this, and then go back to your root folder, and then go to the inner mouth is in the Game Ape files. So Game Ape files, default texture, inner mouth. Because by default, everybody has the same eyes and inner mouth color, unless you have one of the weird apes, or I think the inner mouth is probably the same for everybody. Maybe I'm wrong. Arnold. Okay, we want the base color. Again, inner mouth, base color. You see the tongue, the teeth, right? And maybe the fleshy part of the inner mouth. All right, open. And again, the first time you do a new object, click here, Control-A, Control-C, to be sure you get all of that address. Then ignore the color space, go to raw. All right, you see it right there. Now it's starting to look like something. Again, either click on the inner mouth here or click here. We're going to go all the way back to the mouth. Now, just click metalness, file, copy and paste. And just be sure to change not base color, but metalness .png. And the thing is, you might not notice the difference. Some of these differences might be subtle, like if you use the wrong material. Others will be obvious. I don't think it'd be subtle if you're a professional, though. You'd probably see any of these mistakes right away. Next to roughness, file, copy paste, change it to roughness. Oop. You do have to spell correctly. Ignore color space, raw. All right, click on the teeth. Now we're down here to bump mapping. File. Tangent space normals, click that. Image name, normal. Oop. I need a better mouse. Now you can see they look kind of weird, but again, when you ignore the color space, I think it gets better. Yep, there you go. There's some texturing on the teeth as well, because he's an ape and he's been, eating crazy stuff or something. Okay, that is it for that one, right? The inner mouth. Okay, I'm going to save again. We're close, though. We are close. Shirt next. So click on the shirt, right-click, assign new material, and then shader, standard surface. All right. Underscore shirt. Up to the top. Color. Okay, file. Again, first one, click the folder. Copy paste up. You go faster to wherever you're trying to get. In this case, it's, I think that's the right folder. Yeah, stripe T. Arnold textures, the base color. Open, and then again, copy this. And don't forget, raw. There you go. Click. A standard surface shirt, metalness. File. Feel like somebody could definitely write a script for this. And probably has. Oh, jeez, what did I do? Talking too much. Yeah. Roughness. Okay. Raw again on the roughness, and then finally okay, that looks good on the shirt. Okay, last thing is the fur. So you can click the ape. Sometimes that's hard because of where you are. Otherwise, just come under Group, Geometry, Body. Right click. Same thing, assign new material. Shader. AI standard surface. Change this to fur. Color first. File. I actually want to go to the folder again. So this one is pink. Base color. Oh, it looks good. It looks really good. Oh, I didn't copy the address. So you go back here. Copy pink base color, right? I think that's the easiest thing to do. Back to metalness. File. Copy paste. I'm trying to go too fast and talk. Again, don't forget, this is metalness. And you can kind of check yourself because when you click on the ape again, metalness is the one that's highlighted. It's the one you just did. Good. Roughness here. And again, when you paste, you can kind of look. Okay, yeah, base, pink color, right? But this one was roughness. Always ignoring the rules and then going to raw. Last one. Down to the bottom. The bump mapping. Now you get to see some of the texture as well. And that's the first one that really shows you that what that normal map can do in a more extreme way. You see like it really gives it texture. And the light plays with that texture. So that gives a lot of the look and the definition. Control S to save. You definitely want to save at this point. Because now we really do have it all textured. And so that's the next step. We imported all of our objects and attached them. Then we textured them. And now we get it to move into the next parts. And these next parts are sort of combined because you've got lighting, posing, and cameras. And they're combined because they all affect each other, for one. And sort of rendering, too. We actually get into rendering, and it's something we need to talk about sooner rather than later. So those are all the steps that are going to come next to finish this out. But for now, he's looking pretty good. So I think this is a good time. Like, personally, I want to see what he looks like without all this stuff and with better lights, too. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. And actually below, I'll link to at least one of the light tutorials that I really liked from Maya. And I'm going to go back and watch that more in depth later as well myself. But I think it's good to look at kind of all these last things together, because we want to see what this ape looks like now. Just to feel good about all the work that we've done, for one thing. And also setting up the resolution seems to be kind of important at this point as well. So if you're super into characters and modeling, art, texturing, any of that kind of stuff, maybe what we've done so far was kind of interesting. To me, it's pretty dry and boring, and it's just setup. You just have to do it to get this thing started. The next part, though, I find to be a lot of fun. I really enjoy this. It's technical, but also creative, and that's one of my favorite parts about doing something like this, like Maya, even though I've only been using it for a few weeks. So here's what we're going to do. First thing is we're going to start up our renderer, Arnold. So at the top menu, go to Arnold, and then open Arnold Render View. Okay, so this is going to open a new view. It's really nice to have this one, I think, on a second monitor. Don't have that luxury while I'm doing a tutorial. So for now, what I've been doing is... well, I think it's best to the right of this panel here, so that you can do something like this. We don't really need this stuff down here right now. What I want to be able to see is this window, this perspective window. The tools, the attributes and stuff, I don't need to be very big. But then the render view, I like to be kind of a decent size like this. This looks pretty good to me. And so you don't see anything yet because we literally haven't rendered anything. You have to render a frame to be able to see it, and that will use the real lighting. So to render the frame in the Arnold Render View, you just hit play. And you're going to see nothing, because there's nothing there. There's literally no light. We haven't added any light. This view over here has sort of like a default Maya lighting that's almost, I don't know, like a skybox, so that everything's kind of lit, but it's not very flattering. It's okay, but it's not what we're going to be able to build later. And so what you want to do is start adding lights, right? One thing about the Arnold Render View, you want to hit stop. Like after you've rendered a frame or even just part of a frame, because it builds it like as a preview, kind of piece by piece. Once you've got enough for whatever you're doing right then, go ahead and hit stop, because you really can't do anything else at the same time when you're doing a render in Arnold Render View, unless you have a really, really, really nice machine. So think about that. We'll talk more about that later. Okay, well, we don't have lights, so we need to add lights. I'm going to come back over to the perspective view, and I'm going to hit Alt, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And now there are quite a few different ways to add lights. I'm going to show you the way that I kind of like doing now. It's slightly more advanced maybe, but it's not hard, and I think it helps out a lot later. So what we're going to use is the light editor. Now I have it as a tab already over here, light editor. I also don't need it to be that big, but I already have it as a tab. If you don't, though, come up here to Windows. I think that's under, it's under Rendering Editors, because again, this is connected. It's going to render the light. Windows, Rendering Editors, Light Editor, click that. It'll come up as a floating window, and then just nest it wherever you would like. So here we have no lights in our scene right here. So we need to add a light. And you can do groups and things like that. Like this is very powerful little thing here, this light editor. For now, I'm going to try to keep it fairly simple, so I won't go into like groups. But here's the way I've been doing the lights, and it's worked really well for me so far. these add a different kind of light, like spotlights. This is more like I don't know. I'm not even sure what all these do. I'm not going to get into it. I've been using the same kind of light over and over and then just tweaking the settings. This seems like a really nice light. I'm sure you can get a lot fancier than what I'm about to show you, but this works really well still. Click the middle one. It's called an area light. And when you click it, it will create a new light right here. Area light shape 1, and then now a new object, area light shape 1. This is a little subtle here, but it actually created an object down here in the scene as well. This green square with, this is more subtle, but there's a little thing pointing out in that direction. That is the direction of the light source. So if I come down here, you might be able to see this better. That this little green box is our light and it points that way. Okay, I'll show you how to tweak the placement in a minute. But you see it over here, area light 1, and under the light editor, area light shape 1. But I want to rename this right away. So I'm going to double click here, and I'm going to call this key. I am not going to get deep into how to do lighting, again, because that's subjective. I will show you technically how to do it, and a basic like 3-point light is kind of what I'm going to do right now. But if you want to get more into lighting, watch that other video, or watch any number of videos on lighting for photography or videography or whatever you happen to be doing, even video games. I mean, lighting has gotten amazing. So we need to move this light around. There are a couple of ways to do this. The most fun way is this look through, where you actually fly the light around like as if it's a camera, or the same way you've been moving this perspective view around. Unfortunately, I have found it to be a little bit buggy. And maybe 2019 is better for this, so I don't know. I'll show you how to try to use this, and if it doesn't work, I'll show you the other way. I'm going to show you both ways, regardless. All you have to do, in theory, is in the light editor, click on the light that you want, the key. See how it changed the name? And again, it's a little buggy even with the way that it renames these, but maybe key shape is actually what it's supposed to be. Sometimes it doesn't rename them over here, though. So you got to manually do it sometimes. This button here, the eyeball and the light, click on that. This is really cool. So it's like the view. See, looking through, key shape. So it means we're looking through this camera, this light really. So remember how I said it's on the floor? So what we see here, this red and blue are like the backs of his feet. That's what we see from that light. So if we were to hold Alt and then the right mouse button and back up, now, watch this. The light's moved in the perspective view, right? So again, you got to keep these things straight. This is the view, and we're going to get into more camera stuff later. But the view shows you where all the objects are. So the view is, especially the perspective view, to me, is like the one that you kind of look at your whole scene from. And we're going to make a separate camera later that we actually do our rendering to. So now over here, if you hold Alt and then do a middle mouse button and then up, now it's more like at chest level. You might need to kind of spin this around to see, but you can see that that's at chest level, basically. Okay, so that would be like a really flat lighting, and that's fine if that's what you want. Again, right now it's actually working, so we can kind of fly this around. That's the Alt and the left mouse button. Then I'm going to do Alt with the right, and then maybe Alt and the left again. So now you can see that I've gotten pretty close, like, I mean, really too close for like a real light. Maybe I'll back up a little bit. That's too close too, but again, I'm not going to get super in depth about lighting, but it is very like real world. You can change a lot of stuff here for this modeling. It's impressive. But now we could actually render the scene. So let's just do that. Let's click play here. Okay. Still, we don't see anything. We don't get an error, but we don't see anything. So let's hit stop. So by default, the lights are just really dim. It's just the way that it is. So we need to change some attributes on the key light. So it's a lot like earlier. You click the key, and then over here, go back to the attribute editor, right? Because that edits the attributes for the key light. Now, the first thing we want to do is actually slightly tweak and change the type of light. So under area light attributes, right here at the top menu, we want to change it from area light to AI area light. I don't know the difference, except this one's better. That gives you more control, looks better, renders better, and it's the Arnold lighting. So this is what we're going to use. I think, again, the video I'm going to link is really good, so watch that one on lighting, okay? If you want to get really good at this, watch that and others. Just for now, crank the intensity up, maybe almost all the way or nearly. Same with exposure, okay? And these are related but not the same, but they both basically make it brighter. Again, we'll get into more details on that later, maybe. The other thing that I like to do is change the spread. A spread of 1 is really, really wide. Let's see what it does if we render now. Okay, so that's not too terrible. Let's hit stop. If we change the spread here to like 0.1, then we hit render, play up in the Arnold Render View. Look at that, it's a spotlight. So spread goes from a tiny spot where it's very bright because like all the light is focused into that tiny spot versus, if you spread it out to 1, not all that light spreads out. It's much more diffuse, softer lighting. So again, do whatever you want. It's aesthetic choice, subjective at this point. In the Arnold Render View up here, you can see which camera you're actually rendering, which one you're looking through in the render. And in this case, it's the perspective shape, which is the perspective camera right here. So in other words, if you then move this around, right, then click play over here, see? So you really do need to hit stop unless you have a monster machine. If you try to move this stuff around while it's rendering, your machine will freak out. Okay, so we can move all this around and kind of like look at what it looks like. We can zoom in close and get all cool. Whoop. Hit play. Okay, so you can see it's like, well, this is fine. It's kind of weird. It's not really the right way to do it. He definitely has bloodshot eyes. So, I mean, geez, I don't know. I guess you could just render right from here if you wanted to, in theory. But there's some other things that I think we should do first to make this a better product here. Again, hit stop. I'll find myself sometimes forgetting to do this, but always try to hit stop up here. Okay. Couple of things we could do, but the first thing, I'm going to go into render settings, a tab that I've already set up right here. If you do not have the render settings tab, and you probably won't, go up to Windows, Rendering Editors, Render Settings. Again, it'll pop up as a floating window. Put it wherever you want. Windows, Rendering Editors, Render Settings. Okay, and click that. It'll come up. I'm embedded over here in this one. Okay, there's a lot that we can get into here, and we'll talk more about this when we actually go to render. But the important thing right now is that it seems to me that it's at least somewhat important that you actually set your image size from the beginning. Because if you get to setting your camera, which we're going to get to next, in a certain spot, and then you change the resolution later, it doesn't just change the output resolution, it changes the framing as well. Because you're like seeing more of the scene. That's just the way that it does it. So by preset, maybe do 1080 or 4K, up to you. I'm going to do 4K, I think. Is that not an option? I'll tell you what. For the purposes of this video, I'll just do 1080. Normally I would do 4K, but I'll do 1080 for now. And then you don't have to worry about changing anything else for now. Depending on your machine, I'll show you this. Go into Arnold Renderer here. This is a tab under Render Settings. You can change some of this stuff later. Actually, we want to go into System. If you change the render device to GPU, you probably will see faster rendering if you have a nice GPU. But ultimately, in the end, the CPU looks better. And so I kind of just leave mine on CPU. But you could change that to GPU as well. I think if you really get into settings, tweaking and stuff, you can get the GPU renders to look really nice. And they're definitely faster. But CPU looks better, just if you don't want to mess with anything else. Okay, so now we have a proper output. What we need to do next is make a camera. And the reason that we don't want to use this perspective as a camera is that we're going to be moving this around all the time. Because if and when the light view gets buggy and we can't move our light around with this, we'll need to move it around in different ways. And if we want to do posing and stuff, we'll need to move it around. So to me, the perspective window is to move around your scene and adjust objects in the scene, or maybe to see it for a different angle for a second. So we need to make a new camera. Again, a few ways to do this. Not too hard though. Come up here to View, and then you can either do Create Camera from View, which literally makes a camera from wherever the current perspective camera is, right? So that's kind of cool. You click that and it'll just make a copy of the perspective camera. Or I think there's another way to do it. There's a way to just like create a camera. Huh. Well, there's definitely a way to just make a new camera. I don't see it for some reason. It doesn't really matter. I'll just show you the way that I've been doing. But you can look up how to make a new camera if you want to do it the other way. Go to View, and then do Create Camera from View. Okay. Now down here, you'll see this Perspective 1, which means it's a copy of the perspective camera. So here, I'm going to double click and rename this to Main. That's the main camera. Or, I don't know, maybe Cam 1. A little bit more descriptive. Cam_1. You can't have spaces in the name. Okay, now, in the Arnold Render View, though, we're still on perspective shape, which means we're still seeing it through the perspective shape, not the actual new camera. Okay? So if we were to, like, say, with the new camera, zoom in really close. And you can tell we're on the new camera because down here, it says Camera 1. Okay, so always be sure of which window you're moving. We don't want to move the key light right now, although you can actually see our camera in the key light. We want to move Cam 1. If you want to go back to the perspective, right-click and hold on this camera here, and then let go or click perspective. And it goes back to that one. Okay, so now you can see how close we just added our main camera. We brought it up really, really, really close. Right-click on that, go back to Cam 1. Down here, it changes Cam 1. So now if you were to go to render, you should see it looks a lot different, right? Much closer. Hit stop again. Go up higher with Cam 1. Hit play. Okay, so there we go. That's a close-up of the face. Hit stop again, or it'll just keep rendering until it's like full quality. Okay. Now we have a camera. Okay, we set our resolution 1920 by 1080. If you want to get really crazy, I'll show you how to do this, but you do not need to change what we're about to look at. But when you choose Cam 1 and then go to the attribute editor for the Camera 1 shape, you'll see all kinds of controls. And so if you're, again, are a photographer or videographer, and you understand about depth of field and lenses, focal length, all that kind of stuff, you can get in here and tweak for days and do a lot of really cool stuff. For now, we're just going to stay on a 35mm lens. But you can get into a bunch of stuff down here. Depth of field, environment, all kinds of things. That's for another video. Cam 1, like we're using right now, will be fine. It's going to look a lot better in a minute. A couple things we can do here to help ourselves out. This is too zoomed in. Just move your mouse over here. Mouse wheel down 1 or down 2. If you want to move around in here, hold Alt and then click, and you can kind of drag this window. So that helps sometimes. You can see where your borders are. Like, so that's good enough for now. Another thing that we want to look at. Let's see. We're going to get more into the lighting in a second. Arnold Render View. Over here in Cam 1, for a minute, I want to make this window bigger. And so a quick way to do that, we could actually make this small, this key. But again, if you click on the tab name up here, it just makes it small. It hides it. Hides it kind of like right there. Okay. So a couple ways to do this. This right here is Cam 1. If you go to Panels, then Layouts, you can do 2 panes stacked. And I like this one. So again, in the view window, Panels, Panel, or sorry, not Panels, Layouts, 2 panes stacked. You have 2 panes. This pane of the view, this view window, this pane is Camera 1. This is side X. I don't want side X. I want this to be camera 1, but I want the bottom one, right click, hold here, to be the perspective. So now I can move around here and make changes in the perspective window, and then I'll see what effect that might have even on camera 1, and you can click play here and see the effect it's going to have on the render. But another way to make camera 1 a little bit more useful is a control up here. This one that's the circle inside of the square. Okay, it's called a resolution gate. Click that. Now, what this does is it puts a framing, so you can actually see the framing of what this is going to look like. And that's really important because, again, the Arnold renderer takes time, right? It's a high resolution render, doing lighting and ray tracing and all this kind of stuff. So we want to sort of avoid that for right now. Right, what we want to do is just work in this, and so we can do our framing over here. Like, again, we're moving the camera around. Like, watch it change over here, right? So if we want to kind of frame it up like, actually like the profile pic looks like, and I sort of said we were going to do that, right? So maybe we should make this square instead, but I'll just show you real quick. So that's like better. So now I can hit play over here and see that that's the framing, but with the better lighting. Before we go into more detail about how we can make this look better, I do want to show you, like, if you just wanted to render this right now and you want to do, the camera and the lighting yourself, if what I gave you earlier is enough of a preview, and in a way it kind of is, then here's how you go to rendering. So if you have your render settings tab that we looked at earlier, again, you could tweak this if you wanted. You could change it back to CPU. If you had it on GPU earlier just for previews, maybe change it to CPU now. You really, again, there's stuff you can do in here, but we're not going to mess with that. This is the thing that's important over here. Under the Common tab, under the Render Settings, you have a tab called Renderable Cameras. And you need to be sure that whatever camera that you want to use is the one that, well, you have to be sure that it's renderable, that it's selected. So if you go back over to Arnold Render View, Perspective Shape, again, I thought we had changed it, but let's be sure we're on Camera Shape. So Camera 1 Shape, and then hit play. And you see the render progress down here. But that's okay. That's good enough. Let's just hit stop. So that's the right camera, right? But so let's make a couple of changes. This earring is just bothering me. I don't like it. Click on it, delete it, and if you click play real quick, boom. See, it's gone. You can hit stop right away, right? Okay. So it is on camera 1 shape now, right? Down here we did HD 1080. We can just leave that. And renderable camera, cam 1, okay? As long as that's an option, we'll be able to render to it. So to render, we have to go over here to the top left. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of menus. I've never seen so many menus. This right here brings up even more menus. So instead of modeling, we now want to go to rendering. And you'll see that the menus up here actually change, okay? And so all of this was tricky to figure out, but hopefully this helps you a lot. Come up here to render. Now, you can access the render settings, which is the same tab that's over on the right that we saw just a second ago, that we can see right now, actually. You want to be sure that you render using the Arnold renderer, which is the one that looks the best, takes the longest but looks the best. You really don't have to change anything else here, but just do realize, render, that if you render current frame, it actually won't do it with the Arnold renderer, so you have to do render sequence. Okay, render sequence. Now, if you actually have an animation, there'll be some other options that you need to change, but we don't have to worry about that right now. We're just doing a single frame, and there is no range. But if you have animation, you have to change a couple of other things, an in and an out. But for now, since it's just a still, you can go to render sequence and then just click on it. So what you'll get is like a, I don't know, basically real-time preview of it building out that shot. And down here on the bottom left, you can see the render progress as well. Now by default, it goes, I don't know, to a default folder somewhere. But I think what I've liked doing is this other thing that you can do in Maya. So For some reason, it's acting like it's not done, but it is. There we go. If you go to render, now see how there's a square over here? Anytime you see that, it means that there's an extended set of options for that particular command. And so for render sequence right here, we can click that square box and get a set of options, including where we want to write that file. So you can write that file to your desktop, wherever you want. But this is the important thing here too. This is actually where you set the camera. And so you also have to change this to cam 1. And so that's important as well. So very important thing to do is to go to that options on the renders. I'm going to go through that one more time. So the first thing was that you had to go to the top left and go to this rendering. It used to say modeling, or maybe it said animation. It just brings up some different tools. We want to go to rendering. And then under render, just go down to render sequence. Click the square. And that brings up this. Be sure you have your current camera selected. You really don't have to worry about the rest except for the alternate output location. Okay, and you're going to render that. Now, if that output doesn't look like this on your screen, you may need to tweak another thing. Under the metadata here, we're back to this render settings tab and then common. Under the metadata, name type value, the color space. Now, most of the time, using the output transform has worked well for me. It makes it look like the Arnold Render View output, just like this, even a little bit better. But sometimes it doesn't seem to work. There seems to be a bug, and it comes out looking more like what it would look like if you did raw. And in that case, what you'll get is an image that's sort of flat or washed out. It lacks contrast, and the blacks are as black as they can be. And so if that happens to you, then you would have to take that still into another program like Premiere or Final Cut, or really something more like Photoshop or Lightroom. You can tell I'm more accustomed to the video programs, but you'd have to take it into another program like that and color it, basically. You can probably do that on your phone with an app as well, though, too. So that's another thing, but hopefully it will work for you. If it doesn't, you could try restarting Maya or restarting your computer. You could also go to Arnold Renderer, System, and try the GPU instead, or go back to CPU. I don't know. Hopefully it's just a bug and it doesn't happen this much. This is a newer version of Maya now, so hopefully I won't get that. But if you do that, again, just go to render sequence at the options, tell it where you want it, and then run it by doing render sequence and close, or just render sequence, it doesn't matter. That will give you your output, and you can stop, right? But so now we're going to make this look a little bit better. We got rid of the earring. I wasn't digging that at all on this ape. And so let's say that our goal for this video is to make a nice looking 3D profile pic that pretty much looks like the other ape. I'll show you a little bit about how to pose him otherwise, but I think for this that makes the most sense. So let's see. Let me pull up a picture of this ape. And so we have this nice orange background, and it looks the same, right? So you can look at the angle of the view here. It's, we're in the ballpark, right? That looks pretty good, actually. The mouth needs to be a little bit different, and we'll work on that in a minute. So it's pretty good, though. Oh, that's interesting. The suit's a little bit different. It actually covers up the ears. Huh. Well, let's look at that. Let's see if we can fold the ears in all the way. It's probably how they did it. Let's see. So again, I don't want to move around in the camera view right here. I want to maybe make it smaller, or you can do whatever you want. But I don't want to move around, and I don't want to use my mouse wheel in this window because it will actually move the camera. I want to do that kind of stuff over here in the perspective window. And the shape is good enough. Let's do one thing real quick, though. Let's go back to render settings. And where we, under common at the bottom, we want to go to, let's do square instead. So, okay. I actually do want to render this one. So I'm going to do my own custom width, 4096 by 4096. And you'll see the gate over here changing Oops, not 409. Ultra cinematic. Okay, so that's square now. Let's see. Might need to. Oh, interesting. So, like, if you hit play here, and again, that's why you want to set the resolution like somewhat early on, right? So, because now it's really not close enough. Let's move camera 1 real quick. Ooh, I forgot to hit stop. It's gonna act crazy. So, kind of like let it set for a second, then hit stop. Let it set. Okay, there, good. All right, so this camera's not close enough. So we want something that's more like. Again, I'm sort of looking at my profile pic here. Okay. It's pretty good. Ooh, actually, I like that angle. Okay, so maybe we do something like this, but then I'm going to pose the arm a little bit later so that it's straight down, just like the picture. We'll see about doing that. But the other big thing was the ears, right? If I want to make this match. So let's save. And we're going to save scene as. It's already textured. Now we're doing like really posing. And more than that, but I'll just call it posing. So it's on my mind with this. So let's try this thing. So we want the controller for the ear. Click it, and then maybe like bring it in like that. Huh. And in like this. Yeah, interesting. Oh, I'm moving the camera around. I made that totally rookie mistake. Well, good. You can learn from me. So I should not have been doing that in this view, in this camera view. That was bad. I should be doing that in this view. The perspective. Okay. So we can see we have the textures off too right now, and that's fine. Or we can turn them on. With the number 6 again. Well, what's the best way to do this? Let's see what happens if we go in with the ear, just like. Okay, that's fine. I think that's fine. It's probably not a problem that the ear got moved in that much. So let's just basically do the same thing on this side. So we came up to the ear and grabbed the controller. And remember, there's like 2 controllers, really, aren't there? This one's the one that's where it gets hard. You got to zoom in really close sometimes, or maybe even go to the wireframe 4. And you want the controller. Even this is hard though sometimes. Yeah. Ugh, I got way off here, sorry. It's this blue ring here that we want. There's got to be a better way to do this too. You could select it over here, but just try to get that blue. Yeah, there we go. Back out. Okay, now we may move it in like that, but first let's try to rotate it. So we want to rotate it with this green and flap it in. Let's go back to the other view, 6. Oh, look at that. That actually interesting. It works, but that affects the face more. Huh. So what we did earlier was, by doing that other ring, was we sort of curled it in first. Let's just do that. See. Would you see it through the mouth or something maybe if you opened it up? I don't know. But that's good enough for us. Yeah, they're both jammed in there. That's fine. Okay, so back out here. Now we got to go back to the camera and try to make it look a little bit closer. It doesn't have to be perfect right now, and we'll likely make some slight changes, but I think it helps to be close to at least have some idea. So I'm kind of looking at my, yeah, it's good enough. It'd be cool if the other ear pads stuck out more, but I'll show you how to do that in a little bit, maybe. Here, I'll show you. See how you can see the right cup. So I might want to change that up. That makes a big difference, I think. But, okay, so cam 1 is pretty close now. Let's just go with that. And then you can grab this middle and just make it really tiny, maybe. You can always come back to that later. Again, the perspective is the one that we want to be working on more when we're using the lighting and stuff like that. And that is what we're going to do right now. Hit play to render. Then middle mouse wheel. Yeah, okay. It's somewhat like the profile pic. That's close enough. Hit stop. I'll zoom in one more maybe. Middle mouse wheel up. Okay, that's good. Now, I want to try a different style of lighting. Not flat like this, but with more contrast. So what I want to do first is choose the key light here, and hit W. Then I'm going to move this over to the right. Then I'm going to pan the camera. So now it's to the right, but it's still pointing forward. Still hit play. See how now it really lights the right side of his face here. And you have the shadow that falls off over here. And we'll fill that in later with a couple of different kinds of light. So that's pretty good. You could also rotate the light. Then obviously that'll get more of the left side of the face. Like, let's see if we do, click on the light. Let's see, we're over here in the perspective. Click. Ooh, it's being weird. Oh, because I have the render on again. See, you gotta hit stop. Like, nothing will work if you're rendering over here. Okay, there we go, stopped. Now come over here. It's like hitty. So if you want to spin this light around a little bit like that, then hit play. So it changes, it just changes the light. Definitely on the shirt changes a fair amount. If you Control Z over here, then hit play again, you can see the difference. So I'm not going to get, again, too fine with this right now. I think that's, either of these is okay. Maybe a more common style would be, I think, something like this. And then maybe move it over more even like this. It'd be really cool if you had a fast machine to do that look through and like pan around the camera as it's rendering in real time. But that I don't think you can do. And you don't get a good preview of the light up here, so that doesn't really help. So again, hit stop. So I don't know, that's okay. I could do more. I could move the light up higher and point it down a little bit. Like, I think that would probably look better. So if we go above him, again, just hit play. That's kind of cool. I like that better. And then, again, just moving the camera around. And then what if I went up even a little bit higher? If you want some idea of, like, how high that would be on set, it's still really, on a real set, this is not really how it would look. This is a little too close. I mean, maybe you could. It depends. So if you want to rotate it, you could do a couple different things. The same stuff earlier, where if you hold down D, you can change the alignment of this to make this stuff a little easier. Like, point this either directly away or directly at the ape, like at an angle. Now let go. And so now when you switch to W, you can actually push the light at him. Sorry, doing it first so that you can rotate it right at him. Or her. Actually, her, really. I guess with the, who knows, whatever you want. Point the arrow down. I don't know. That's kind of worse. I'm just going to go back. But you can do whatever you want like that, right? So play around with the light, and you can get a lot of different looks. And it's easy to undo, and then go right back over here, and then see what it looks like. Again, too dark. I think I actually liked it lower. Again, but also you could go back to the intensity, the brightness, and all of that kind of stuff, too. So It's like a little bit of a, yeah, maybe it should be brighter. So let's go over here to the attribute editor, and we had the key light selected. So let's go a little bit brighter. If it doesn't look normal, just scroll up or try a different tab. But the one that we wanted is not the camera shape, but the AI area light. And we want to change it, maybe the intensity or the exposure. So if you change the exposure to 5 and then hit play, quite a bit brighter, right? And maybe for what we're doing, that's good. Profile pick, you probably want it to be brighter, not so contrasty. Other things you could do is you could spread it more. Like, I thought that we changed that earlier, but maybe not. Spread, if we do like 0.3, it'll change and be more of a spot. That's odd. Hang on. Yeah, and now that it makes sense that it's that much brighter because you're not spreading the light out as much. So you have a lot of options here. Yeah, you can just decrease the intensity of the exposure, but you could also move the light back. Just be sure to hit stop. And everything will give you a different look. So I don't really want the exposure to be that high. So if I just go like 4, hit play. Okay, that's better. For now, I'm just going to leave that. That's pretty good. Okay, so that's a basic key light. I'm going to start moving a little bit faster here because, again, you should watch some other things for lighting. Other tutorials. We need more lights. Go up here to the light editor. Add another area light by clicking on this button right here in the middle. You may need to rename these, see here too, like key. And then what we're going to call this next one is the rim or halo or backlight. A lot of different names for this. But this is going to give us some like edge and definition on the back of the helmet and the shoulder if we do it well. Remember, we want to change this. This logo is the AI versus the normal. So come back over here to area light 1, double click to call it rim. Okay, and then under the attribute editor, which is the one for the rim, it changes from area light to AI area light. And you have all the same things as earlier. You can change the color of it if you want, right? You could do a pink highlight or a blue or whatever you want. So like, let's go up really high on the intensity and exposure. We're going to make this super bright. And we're also going to make it not very spread out, like a 0.2. Okay. I feel like something weird just happened. Okay, so I don't know what I did right there. I hit something weird. I could go back and watch, and the undo wasn't actually working very well. So a couple things you could do here. And this is maybe good just to tell you. This is where I've had a lot of trouble. If something made another light, I don't know how I did it, but somehow I made another light. Here it is, a third light right here. I don't want this light at all. And if I try to delete it, it will actually crash Maya. I don't know why, but I've seen a couple of other people have that problem as well. So a couple of options here. You could just go back to the last save point, and I think that's actually what I am going to do. And then maybe I'll take this through it clean again. I'm not sure. I'll have to see in the video. But you could also just turn it off like this. This right here just mutes or turns off that light, and it'll still show over here in your outliner. And be careful about this, because be sure that you mute it first. Like turn it off here. It's like solo and mute. This is solo. We'll talk about that later. This is mute. Turns it off. Makes it with this dashed line. So it's still in here though. And if you right click and do hide an outliner and then do hide, it'll go away. Later, if you want to see that again, go up here under the outliner, go to display, and then do ignore hidden in outliner. So then it will ignore the command that you just put on it, and it will reveal the things that you had previously hidden. I don't know, whatever, funny way to do it. But so here's what you could do. I called this posing. I really wanted to call it lighting, but I'm going to do increment and save, which we hadn't really done yet. And then I'm going to try to go back to the last version and see where I was. This also, what I'm about to do, seems to crash Maya sometimes too. If you really want to be clean, maybe just close Maya and then open that previous one, posing without this appendage. But and I don't know why this is like this, but I think you should be able to do this: file, recent files, and you should, in theory, be able to click on the one that we just had, posing without the extra. So I'm going to click on that. Now, it should close this project and then open that other one. But sometimes it crashes. And there we are. It crashed. So yeah, don't do that, I guess, because it really doesn't work. And also, I think that trying to do that thing that I just did is maybe what corrupted one of the files that I had earlier and corrupted all the previous iterations as well, which is absurd to me, but it happens. So I did exit and then just open it, like I said. That's cleaner. There we go, and we're back to just the key light. So, okay, I'll probably cut some of that stuff out, but here we go. We need to add more lights. I think we were good on the... Now you see that the Arnold Render View disappeared. So, again, come up to Arnold and then open Arnold Render View. You might need to make it smaller first, or make it a lot smaller. Come on. Sorry, it's just acting weird right now. So that you can come up here and move it again to the right of this panel, I think is the best spot for it. Maybe expand the render view. Uh-oh, are we still on wide? Yeah, let's see how far back we went. No? Nah. Whatever. We'll figure this out in a second. It's a really powerful program, but I think that this new version, 2022, is just, it's got some bugs, obviously. I know I'm a beginner, but I've used a lot of software, and this is bug stuff. Okay. We have a key light, so if we hit play, we should see something. Mouse wheel out. Okay, so we're fine. Camera's not in a good spot. Okay, now this is interesting. Here's a common bug. If you look up here, and again, hit stop, it says that you were looking at camera 1 shape in Arnold Render View, but we're pretty clearly not, because camera 1 up here with the gate on, it should look like this. What we're actually seeing is the perspective. This is what we're seeing, I'm pretty sure. So what I usually do is come up here, change it to perspective, and then change it back to camera 1, and now hit play. Ah, look at that. Bugs. Okay, hit stop. Now it looks good. Now, what we were on was trying to add the rim light. Let's go to the light editor. Come on. And what we want to do is just click on this middle button one time. We're going to make one more area light. Immediately come over here and rename it. Double click. Rim. Now, I'm going to click away. I don't know what I did earlier. Well, actually, I can't. I need to click on rim, and I need to go to the attribute editor. And in the attribute editor, I need to change this to AI area light. Okay. And then maybe even in this, I should do underscore rim as well. Oh no. I should not do that. Undo rename. Okay, don't do what I just did. Do not do that. Click on rim. Let's see if we're even good still. AI area light 2. Yeah, so do not rename that, I guess. Sorry. Okay, rim. Here we are. It's down here. And now it's an AI area light. You can see that these little icons are the same. So we're going to crank up the intensity. Let's just do intensity exposure all the way. And we wanted to do a very small spread. 0.2. Or not very, you can get smaller than that, but it's still pretty small, relatively speaking. Let's leave the color as white for right now, but I'll show you another color maybe on this one. So here it is right here. Again, the coolest way to do it is to do the light editor, select area light 2 here. Now let's see. I want to rename. I want to right click, rename. I'm going to call this in rim and hit enter. Okay. I'm going to double click here, key, and hit enter. All right. Everything's working fine. Click on rim, and then in theory, you can click on this eye on the spotlight, and it'll open up your window looking through rim. We are not, though. We are not looking through the rim. We're looking through the key. And the thing I did earlier on the view window where you right-click here and change camera, it doesn't. It throws an error. It doesn't let you do that in this looking through. So we're already to this thing not working. So yeah, we're going to click on this tab, and we're going to position the rim light using our perspective. We've chosen the rim. Let's click W. We're going to move it up. So the rim light is usually pretty high. Not always, but high and behind. And so you're going to kind of point down, and you really want to light up like here somewhere. The edge. An edge light is another name for it, although you can do edge lights from other positions. But edge or rim or halo or whatever, a hair light even people call it, if you're going to kind of light that part of the hair. So you can think about all of that as we sort of look around and try to position this. So usually it would be behind. I know this is not really like to scale on set, but you could do it that way if you wanted to. So kind of high and behind, and then the rotation's wrong though. It's pointing backwards. So click E. We need to rotate it around this way, like all the way, yeah. And then I like to kind of go overhead. Helps, especially when it's like in 3D, right? So we're gonna maybe like hit the shoulder or the head, and then we're gonna point it down, and then now you need to kind of move the camera. Move the camera back down. Okay, and then you can look at where that's pointing. But what you could also do is just come over here and hit play. Okay, so is basically where I want it. Probably too much on the front of the shirt, so I'm gonna back it off. Let's do like W. And then I want to do actually hold D. I want to spin this around. Oops. Click on rim. E. Hold D. Now I want to grab that and spin. Because what I want to do is I want to be able to pull this like straight that way. Yeah. So now when I do W, I can pull it back like this. Let's see what that does. So it does light it up here. Still too much here, but it's just too intense, I think. So I hit stop, come to the attribute editor. Again, we're on the rim light. Both of these are too high. So if we did like 8 and 4, and then we don't need it that big. Probably ways to much more effectively use these windows than I am, but watch a tutorial. Okay, so you see what that does? It gives a highlight here, and it lights this part of the shirt, right? So that's kind of cool. It's not really doing a great job of... There are ways to make it like really, really hard and sharp, like a hard, sharp line, and that can look cool. I don't want to do this too much, but like if we rotated it differently, more straight down, and then hit play. Maybe that's a little too much, but let's go back to like really bright. And maybe even expose it all the way now. Okay, that's kind of interesting. It's almost getting what I want up here. So if I come back over here, again, there's just really truly an infinite number of ways to do something like this. So you really just have to experiment or study photography or watch these other tutorials. See, that's getting better though. And that is pretty much what I want. Like, it makes some interesting shadows too much here. We'll address that in the next slide. But it gets this little rim right here. And I'm going to leave that for now. It's just really not worth playing with for what we're doing. Hit stop. Save again. We're going to do one more light. So come back to the light editor after it's saved. Click away. Click the middle light here to make a new one. Go over here. I'm going to call this fill. And that's going to fill this black gap on this side of the face. Come back over here. I see it kind of renamed it. Whatever. Click the attribute editor. Again, we do want to change that to AI, area light. All of our familiar stuff. This one, we definitely don't want it as intense. Let's try like 8 and 4. And then spread, let's do the 0.3. Okay, and again, it starts off, we're going to be in our perspective view. It starts off down here like always, so we're going to move it back. I'm not even going to try the look through because I know it's not going to work right. Look how these are kind of janky. The controls are all weird. That's because I moved the pivot. So if I hold D again, and then you can align it with certain things, we'll talk about that later, but if you click outside, I think it resets it. Or I thought it did. There's a way to do that. Hang on. Hold D. Oh, reset pivot. Right click like that. That's one way to do it. So that's one way. Oh, see, I don't want to change the pivot that way anymore. Okay, click off. Click on the fill light again. Now we can move it around differently. So what we want to do is go to the other side of the face because we're trying to fill the part that's not filled, right? And again, a lot of ways to do this. You can come from above or below or head on, a lot of different things. I'm going to make it really simple. Try to basically be head on and then pointing at that side of the face. Go further over here. Yeah. And then rotate it with E so that I'm pointing that basically at that side of the face. And then if we hit play over here, you see how that fills that in. So I don't love the lighting. I would do a lot of things to change this. I don't know. Could have picked better positions here. But I think you get the idea of how something like this could work for you. Another cool thing to show you though with the light editor as you go in here is like it's hard. It starts to get hard to tell what light is doing what. But you can actually turn them on or off, right? With the solo or the mute. And so if you like solo key and then hit play, you'll see just the key light. I was like, I don't know, the key light's not bad. I don't love it, but it's not terrible. Let's do that. The rim light, solo, play. Yeah. So I don't love how much of the shirt it's getting right here. That's really not what it's supposed to do. And I think that's part of what I'm not liking. So I'm going to hit stop there. That rim just does not look good. I really wish I've gotten kind of used to the look through, but at the same time, it stops working quite often. So something happened sort of when I rotated this, where it's just getting too much of, I want the rim here, yeah. So what if I just move it back some? What does that do? Oh, I'm still getting so much on that side of the shirt. So stop the rotation of it in that direction. Now it's almost pointing straight down. Okay, that's better. But I want the helmet lit too. So this is better though. Just move it more in that direction. W, move it over a little bit, hit play. Again, you do not have to let it render all the way. Might need to come up a little bit more too. Let's try that. That's kind of extreme, but I wonder if it needs to be higher. There's a lot of stuff to consider because you have an angle too on the light. Like, see, that's better. Actually wasn't really high enough earlier. Then you may have to adjust the other settings, but see, that's getting more what I wanted. An interesting shadow here. So maybe still too much here. Again, hit stop. So maybe back a little bit up. Hit play again. Kind of dims it here. And it still have a little bit on the helmet, but maybe not as much as I want. Hit stop. So if I go to the left a bit more, also up a bit, that's going to make that brighter too, though. Okay, that's getting good enough. That's the idea. You can tweak for days. I think there's still probably too much on the shoulder here. And you just got to think about, well, there's a lot of ways you can deal with that. You can actually put like what they call a flag in here and block some of this light. And that video that I linked to talks about that. So I got to move on. Sorry if I went too much on this. It hits unsolo basically the rim. So really the only one that I didn't like a lot is the fill, which maybe has changed names again. I don't know. Rename that fill. So you could do this, like solo the fill, and look at it. Yeah, see, I think it's too. I'm gonna hit stop. I actually want it less spread. I want this more like really just filling that gap. Hit play. So yeah, it naturally gets brighter though when you have less spread. What if it's even smaller though? 0.1. And then let's go just down on exposure a bunch. But keep intensity up, because I think that makes... See, now that's getting better. What if the intensity's higher? Okay, let's see then. Back to the light editor. And unsolo. And you can also mute, right? So if you want to see what it looks like without the rim, just mute the rim. Hit play. Okay, so that's basically our new lighting. Still, like, it was kind of flat, but it's all right. Hit stop. Let's bring the rim back in. Hit play. Yeah. So, I would really play with this a lot. I'm going to try to avoid doing that now, but this... I mean, I like stuff like a lot more contrasty and shadows and stuff. For this tutorial, I didn't want to make too much of that. I wanted to keep it kind of flat. It's already like, I don't like how flat a lot of it is. I would change this key, I think, more like, and then bring down the fill even a little bit too. Or crank up the brightness on the... Again, you can see how you go back and forth with this. Okay, last thing I promise. On the fill here, I'm just going to turn down the intensity to 8. Better. 6.5. Because the idea with the fill really is that, yeah, like, again, let's go back real quick. I'll show you one more thing. Light editor. If you mute the fill, what was the problem? Well, the problem was that there's literally like a black hole right here where you can't see anything. So the idea is that we're really just trying to fill that in a little bit more. So the fill, if you solo it, I don't know, it's not in a bad spot necessarily. It could just be less, so less intense maybe. Attribute editor on the fill here. Intensity, let's do 5. Okay, that looks more like a fill maybe for what we're doing if we want kind of a high contrast. So let's come back over to the light editor and unsolo. Save. Really does help to see it bigger sometimes, so get it on that second screen or make it bigger sometimes. Okay, that is pretty good, and I think we're going to leave that for now. I like that. Decent. Okay, hit stop. The other thing that I didn't talk about earlier is more about posing or manipulating it. If we really want to match the picture, we actually do need to do a few things, because the picture, you know, the shoulder, the arm is together right here. It's not out at all. and this is bigger. So those are the two things that stand out. And then the mouth is closed. You don't see the teeth at all. So I think I want to change those things really quickly. And again, this is where another monitor helps, but you don't have to have it. You can do this on a laptop if you have to. But decent enough for the lighting. Maybe it could be brighter. It's taste at this point, and what you're going for, the purpose is too. And we're also going to put a different background in at some point. So, okay, the arm though. Let's get over here again in the perspective. We definitely don't want to mess with the camera. In fact, you might even want to make this even smaller. Camera, we're going to leave pretty much the same. Really, it's just the right arm that we have to move. And so go up here to the controller on the shoulder and click that. And then, you know, I'm not going to be getting into like posing and everything too much here, but like things are a combination, right? So no matter what the move is, you can think about going out and in, but also rotating. So here my instinct first is maybe to like rotate that arm down, you know, and that's cool. But maybe does it come in a little bit too? I don't know. In this case, probably don't have to. If we hit play over here, yeah, I think that's pretty good actually. Check this out. Oops, stop. Sometimes it's slow to stop, and you like double click it. Check out the arms, right? So that looks a lot more like this. It doesn't have to be perfect, and we could even try to do it so you don't see the back right here, but they're not going to look exactly the same, no matter what you do, I don't think. Yeah, now it's looking too dark, right? But we'll maybe turn up our key here. That was the one thing. This and then the smile. Both of those get into more advanced things. So we definitely need a little bit more light now. We may even back the key off later, but let's go back to the key, attribute editor, and let's go up to 9 maybe. Hit play. Yeah, maybe even more. Let's see, 10. I'd rather it be a little bit too bright right now. Even that's not really too bright. I moved it out pretty far. Exposure up a little bit. Oh, so that made a big difference, right? Let's leave that for now. I don't like quite how bright that is, but it might help us here. So I'm gonna hit stop. So let's close the mouth, and this gets a little bit more advanced because now we're into these controllers, and so this is cool. It's just again, it's more advanced. All of these things are controllers. You know, this one that we've been playing with, the big things like the head, the shoulders, but these are all controllers too. These are for this part of the. I don't know what you would say. It's not muscles exactly, but these are the areas where you can affect expressions. And so you can make the eyelids go up or down, the inside, the outside of them. You can make the nose kind of change a little bit, the cheeks, the jowls, the chin, the lips, the jaw. I mean, there's a lot going on here that you can do. Like the most obvious ones like this, right? Or these maybe on the front, if we're talking about the teeth. So if you come over here, zoom in, again, we get some difficulties in choosing this object sometimes. You just gotta be really careful and like nail the thing. So now that's chosen. So just play around for a second. Like use the rotation and see. So you can rotate the lip. Some of them kind of bite their lip, right? So you would want to maybe have it kind of under. Some of them have that kind of spitting look. And for that, you would want to pull it out like this, rotate, right? So you just have to look at the ape in question. This one's not really like that. It just has kind of a closed mouth. You also have to be careful as you get really extreme. Like look at the area on the left of the sphere, up in the top left of his teeth. You may have to adjust the teeth because like it's the teeth are kind of showing through his upper right lip. Okay, I'm gonna like this area right here. But if I undo, it goes back to normal. So in this case, maybe that's not what you want to do. I don't know that I want to do that. Let's look at the reference again. Yeah, so it's interesting because like the face is like down and the bottom jaw is like barely anything. It's all top. And this model is awesome. I love these. But like it's a little fatter maybe almost on the bottom. So we can deal with that in a couple different ways. It depends on how close you want to get it. Like if you just want to be simple and just say, oh, well, look, this is close enough. I just don't want to see his teeth. Then, okay, we could probably do that a few different ways. Let me show you one this other controller, though. This big green one right here is the jaw. These two green ones are the lips. This is the jaw. So if you click on that one, you get this. And check this out. So that opens, it's the bottom jaw, right? If you think about it, you can't open your top one, right? You only open your bottom one. That's where the pivot is. So this is how you can do that. So you could rotate it. Again, I'll undo. There's your starting position. So you could do a combination. You could rotate it or you could drag it up, right? Well, if I want to make that kind of smaller, maybe I do drag it up so that the bottom isn't as big. Okay, now that looks pretty good. And if you look at the picture, he sort of has those pursed lips, right? But the bottom's so tiny here. So you could change this. It would sort of change the look of this guy a lot, but there are some ways that you can like drastically change this shape. Maybe I'll show you that. I don't know if you even care, to be quite honest. Let's hit play. Let's see what we got. So that closes it up. Okay, now it's annoying me how bright it is. Key. Let's go back down to 4 here. All right, 4.5. Okay. Yeah, for real, watch that video. Okay, so the lips are, look, that could be good enough. I'll show you something else in a second, and then we'll see how we can apply it to this if we want. The angle is pretty good on this too. Maybe we need to turn it a little bit flatter, like just rotate it just a little bit. That is not what I was thinking it was gonna do. Okay, but that maybe is more like the picture. Let's see, hit play here. Oops. What happened? Well, for one thing, I've got this on play. I gotta hit stop on this. Let's come in one more. Close enough. Hit play. Okay. I think that's pretty good. No, again, don't change the camera now. Go back to perspective view. What I want to try to do, and this gets a little weirder, but I want to try to take this ear pad and actually bring it way out. We'll see how far we can do it before the texture starts to look weird. But I want to grab this part of the ear pad. So this next thing is a little more advanced. I'm going to try to rotate this so that the ear pad is on the bottom. Yeah, like this. Okay. Now, you need to select the helmet. Either by that or clicking out and then on the helmet itself, right? Okay. This is like a much more advanced tool, but it's super cool, and I just wanted to show you real quick. So there is a thing that you can do where you can stretch like these meshes in all kinds of cool ways. If you select the fighter helmet, it'll only select or affect the mesh on the fighter helmet. So here, go down to face. Okay, and look at this. So actually, for here, we want to be a different view, top down like this. Okay, so watch this. This tool is really cool because it takes this heat map and then you can click. And now, see, I'm not holding anything. When you do this arrow up here, it'll actually pull that shape out. Like so, look at this. Let's hit play. Although we do have a black background, it's going to be hard to see. Yeah, we're not going to be able to see that black ear cup. We'll take care of that. But let's undo. So this is a really cool tool. Oh, does it actually go down by default? Interesting. Yeah, it does a little bit. So we'll get back to that in a second, I guess. We actually need to create a background so that we can see what this looks like as we pull it out. So let's do that. Click away. It's stuck on this mode. There we go. Okay. So back away some. And let's see, what can we do? There are a couple of ways to make a wall. I'll show you kind of an easy way. And again, you learn a couple new things. So in perspective right here, come over here and now go to modeling. Okay. And now you're going to have these choices up here in this menu. Go to poly modeling and then select a cube. And when you do, it adds a cube right here and puts it down in the center, the origin. Double click to rename it. We'll call this wall. Okay, now this is cool. So you can just move the wall around, or the cube, not really a wall yet. Move it to the back maybe. And then click R. R is another tool over here in this menu, or by the hotkeys. What's cool about R is it's the scale tool, so you can make things bigger or smaller. If you want to make the whole object bigger or smaller equally on every axis, then click in the center, hold, and stretch it. Right, so that makes a cube. Undo. If you want to go in this direction, grab that, and it goes equally both ways. And sometimes it goes small at first, but then as you pull it out more, it goes a lot bigger. So let's just do like a wall like that. And then now drag this up. And again, it goes in both directions equally. So depends on how you want to do it, but you can just kind of move this around. So now you can zoom out and see that you have a wall, right? Maybe it's a little bit close to them. We can back that wall up. But it gives you a wall. Okay, now we need, again, there's a couple ways to do this, I think. Let me see real quick. Over here. Okay, so I think we do need to put a material on it. So we'll just do the same thing as earlier, or almost the same thing. I'm going to right click on the wall. I'm going to do assign new material. Now, I saw someone do this the other day. Shader, then AI flat. So let's try the flat. I think light affects it a little bit differently. So for this, it's going to work well because it's basically like the background to our profile pic. So for the color, you want to do this. Bring up that image that you had earlier, right? Make it smaller. Then do color here. Oops. So this is like a color picker, right? Where you click on this and then you can go click whatever color you want. But I kind of made it freak out. Let's see. I thought that you could do it with another window. Let me put it in the other screen real quick. Try this again. Weird. Okay, so here's the color picker. So do that, and then you can go down to, yeah, it works on the other screen. So I'll go down there and I'll choose orange. And so that's the background on my ape, right? So now you got that orange color as the background. And if you hit play here, boom, an orange wall. You can see here it's black still because it's actually the camera perspective. So just click on the wall, click R again to go to our scaling tools, and then we just need to make it a little bit, well, not really wider, but taller. So that's fine. Hit play. Right, and then it fills it in all orange. And that might even affect the way you want to think about the shading and the lighting as well. And I wonder if there's an orange cast because of the orange wall and how close the ape is. And there's a lot that goes on in the Arnold Render View. If you don't want that, if that is indeed happening, I'm thinking maybe here because these pixels, you could back it up so there's less bounce off the wall. Again, this gets a little bit more detailed. But again, you'd also have to make it then bigger to compensate for the fact that it's further away. And also then taller. Funny. Anyway, a lot of things you can do. But we're getting close, right? And again, this is probably good enough. You can probably just render this. You won't see these dots once it gets done, but I think that does mean there's some light bouncing back, and that's probably fine for what we're doing. Yeah, I can see that. See, it's kind of shiny. I thought that it wouldn't be shiny, but it kind of is. I think there's a way to turn that off too. Well, anyway, not really the focus of this. That's too much of a detail even for me. Okay, now let's go back to that thing we talked about a minute ago, which was the ear cup, and see if we can make it bigger. So it looked like actually the best view is just to come from the side. Okay, so let's just do like this. Come straight on from the side. Pretty much straight on. Sometimes it's tricky, and the quality of your mouse actually starts to affect this a little bit. Okay, so we have this. Again, we need to choose the fighter helmet, and then right click and do face. Okay, there's other ways to do this, but this is the way I've been doing it. Okay, here we go. Okay, the thing is, I really want the whole cup to come out, and maybe even a little bit more. This is like too small of an area. So you can do this, like you can click here. Okay, that's the center point. It'll come out the most in the center and then less as you spread around. But you can actually change the settings for this tool. That would be under tool settings. Okay, so I've got the tab right here, tool settings. If you don't have the tool settings tab, well then where is it? The tool settings, let's say Windows, maybe general editors. Yep, there we go. Tool settings. So click that. It'll open the float window. Put your tab over here or wherever you would like it. Okay. Under the tool settings, this is a thing called soft selection. It's really cool because it lets you change the mesh. And even if you're not like good at this stuff, it's pretty powerful. So I wonder if I do, well, no. Let's see. I think I have to redo it maybe. I didn't think that I did. That's odd. It just wasn't updating. Let's maybe hit enter. Yeah. Okay, that's too much, right? So you can try numbers and see like what, that might be good if I brought this straight out. In fact, let's try that. You can keep playing with the fall off radius. 0.5, too small. 1 might be just right. It'll pull all of this out a fair amount, but not this stuff here. You can also do the curve differently, and that gets really fancy, but that would be like if this middle comes out too much, then we could change the curve here, and that will affect it will make this middle come out less compared to the rim. Again, something you just got to play with, kind of get an eye for. But so we need to change our tool back to W, to the arrows, and we're going to pull it straight out. Okay, let's just see what that does. Hit play. Now, this might not look good if you were going to do this for like a video game. In fact, it wouldn't look good. And I'll show you why in a second. But if all we're doing is a still and we're just trying to make this match, I'm just trying to show you, how powerful this stuff can be, even if you don't really know the software very well. And look, this makes a difference, right? I feel like we need to change the fall off radius pretty quick here. It's getting to, like, more of this needs to come out as well, maybe. But again, I don't want to get too in the weeds here. But under your soft selection, hit stop. We could change a lot of things here. Like maybe it needs to be more like 1.3. A little bit bigger. Let's see if that kind of helps the shape out a little bit. Nah, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't be doing this. Whoop. Undo that, whatever I did there. Yeah, so this is a whole thing. You can change the curve. Oh, that's worse, though, actually. Isn't it? Or is it not affecting it because I already did the move? Yeah, I think that's the case. So you got to play with this. You're going to have to undo and things like that. I mean, this is pretty good for now. I maybe should have expanded it to be bigger in the beginning. I'm not going to go and undo and redo it, but that's effectively how you do this part right here. So that made it stand out more, and it looks more like the picture, because again, in the picture, you can see that cup pretty prominently, right? So maybe we could do even more. And in fact, let's say we did want to do more. We'll do one more thing here. Under the tool settings, let's go back and make this like a bigger fall off radius now. Like if we do 2, now if you pull it, like the whole side of the helmet's going to start to come with it. Not bad. And I think had we done it maybe bigger from the beginning, it would look better. Now look how goofy it looks head on, right? That does not look right at all. And in fact, wow, we pulled it away from the head, actually. The whole thing starts to pull away. So that looks very bad like that. But with what we have here, it doesn't look so bad. I bet if we undo, yeah, that last move really made it kind of pop out. Let's just go back to that. It looks a little bit better along the hair. That's close. But there's some other ways that you could do that too. Soft select isn't the only way to do this. And so there is a way where, say, you could select like really just this part here where it's stitched together, this cup, the bigger cup here, and take that away. And if you hit B, it goes to this other kind of selector. So look at that with soft selection, and then B back and forth changes soft select mode on or off. And you can do different things. Like with this, you can like, let me show you. Alt, I'm gonna move my camera around here. I got lost. This is where you would want to look at it from like the side, or 90-degree angle basically. And see, you can do like this, where you draw like this, and it only selects that stuff, and it doesn't have this soft select stuff. So maybe on this one, that actually would have been a better choice to do that, perhaps. But whatever. This looks good for now. And how do you get out? I can't remember how you get out of this. Yeah, I guess click away or click off. Okay, again, that looks really goofy by itself, but we can hit play one more time up here. Looks nice here, and I think it was a good addition. We need to see that second cup. It's just part of the character of it. And if we look finally one last time at our profile picture, that looks pretty darn good. We could try to draw the cheeks in here, and play with the chin just a little bit. He's kind of got this like droopy thing going, right? So I'll show you a little bit of that real quick. Come back over in here. We're on the face already. So the cheeks, like I said, in the picture, we want to maybe draw the cheek like, you know, again, they also look a little different, right? But here, we want to bring this in a little bit and make it more droopy. Make it more like almost straight down, a little less round. And then maybe make this even smaller and bring this in a little bit too. Let's see how crazy we want to get. But this yellow one here, again, it gets really hard. Sometimes you have to zoom in and like be very precise, or turn your meshes off, or there's probably other ways to do this where you like just show these controllers. And actually, if you go up here to show in the view, you can like choose what you show and don't show. You can do isolate select. I don't know, but you'd have to know the names of all these things. But like controllers is really what we want. I wish there were a way to just solo it, so we just show the controllers right now. But I don't know. There are ways to choose what you're doing. But if you're very, very careful, you can just click on it. And then again, all the same controls as before. W, E, and even R. I don't think we're going to scale this, but all the same controls. So where is the controller? I'm not seeing it. I thought that I clicked W, E, R. Interesting. So I am clicked on this because, well, I thought I was. I'm not, because there's nothing selected here. So we need to select this very precisely. Now it's selected. You can see that it turned green. Good. Okay, now you see the controller stuff here. Okay, so we can move this like up. Okay, and then look at this. Getting a lot of spill. I think that's all this orange. But that's closer. Again, you'd have to like undo over here and then hit play again here. You see how it pulls back? So that's definitely better. So we can maybe even go further. Let's like pull it way up. See how far we can go here. So there you start to show the teeth. And you have to start messing with something else to cover that up. Let's just try that. You could also do rotation or something, but I don't think we really need to do that. It's almost too hard down here. So if you click on, I don't know, let's back it off just a little bit. Oh, I forgot to hit stop. Just doesn't like doing anything when you have the render view open. It really doesn't. And I get it, but hit stop. Stop. There we go. So I backed this off just a little bit. That looks a little bit more natural. But now if we go over here to this red one and click it, and now move it up. And also, don't forget that you can rotate the controls, so you can move this like in at a diagonal or whatever. Like you can get really crazy. I am not that good with this. Oh, actually it's more just like the fur here. So you could bring it up a little bit, but it doesn't really help that much. You could also try to bring it up. That doesn't help either. I wonder what happens if we do this controller up. I guess I'm like a goofy little smile, sorta. That's no good. We don't want that. So, okay. That's pretty good. Again, it looks goofy in a way, but it's closer to what we had. Or it's closer to the picture, I guess I would say. So, I think we can go with that on that side of the face. It's just kind of drawn down, right? I don't know if changing this side of the face would really show a big difference on the other. There might be a way to mirror the controls. I'm not great with the controls yet. So again, it looks really weird here, but how does it look over here? Looks okay. Pretty good. I think posing the mouth is definitely a little bit trickier. Just depending on the expression. It looks like the top lid is almost underneath. I don't know how to interpret that exactly. The lips just look a little bit weird on this guy. I've never been sure, like, is that the opening or is this? I don't know. You could maybe, there's just so much going on here. That's not what that one's supposed to be used for. And a lot of this makes it, again, all of these controllers can make this thing very expressive. But if you're like me, then you're going to have to watch some more videos and stuff to like really know how far you can take this stuff. Let me show you one more thing. The fact that the chin is so big here, I think it looks great in like VR, and I think it looks great on videos and animations and things. But if you're like trying to match a profile picture one for one, I would actually make a change to this maybe. And to do that, we're going to go back to that soft select tool and kind of look underneath the jaw here. So select on the ape, right? And then a right click, go down to face, right? And so click B again to put the soft select on. And you can see this is too big right here. What I'm trying to just get the bottom of the jaw. So we need to go to the fall off radius like 1 maybe again. And you can see, like, does that just get the bottom of the jaw? Pretty much. Maybe a little less. 0.75. Okay, so you're going to have to play with this. But we want kind of the center. Maybe do it more from that side since that's the side we're working on. Okay, now check this out. I think we're going to wish it went a little further here. So actually, let's change the point to like here. Yeah, let's see what that does. Okay, so you're gonna bring this up. Now it starts to show the bottom like lips or jaw or something, and that's okay. We won't worry about that for now. Maybe just go as far as we can before that gets exposed. Right there, it was getting exposed, and then like pan around and say, well, still looks pretty good. Let me hit play here. We're going in a good or bad direction. See, it's a little shorter now. I think it's gonna be tough with my knowledge to match this exact. And again, you don't have to. I think it already looks close enough. I just kind of showing you some extra tools here. So you saw it was breaking in over here, but you still could like, well, you could go further away from that spot and then try to push it up more. That's still showing through. Make the radius smaller. And again, I think these are tools that help you in other situations too. So, okay, now maybe instead of that, we go back this way a little bit and go, no. Same problem as before. So I feel like the radius is like just off a bit. Okay, that's pretty good. And then now if we come over here, but we can squeeze a little bit more. Well, maybe actually more like here. Go up a little bit. That might be too far. Let's hit play. Yeah, I think I went a little too far. Let's go back to that. Okay, so that's better. It's flatter. It looks a little bit more like them. But again, there's a lot that you can do. I am definitely very much a beginner on posing this mouth. I've gotten better at it, and I've done a few that have like open mouths and teeth and stuff. And there's a lot that you can do. But again, probably watch a tutorial on just the facial rigging, facial animation. This is not even animation. Save that. This is good. I think this is a good spot to end. I probably went too much in detail at times. I will put out a second version of this video that's shorter. It doesn't include some of that extra stuff. But if you're happy with this right now, again, we're really where we need to be at render. Go to the render settings. If this tab is gone for you, go back up to Windows, go to rendering editors, and then render settings. Okay. Under the render settings, let's be sure that we're at 4096 by 4096. That's a big, nice 4K square image. Okay. Take one more look at it, see if the framing and everything is the way that we want it. Yeah, pretty much. We're good. Okay, a couple more things though. Up at the top here. Image format, well, that's whatever you want, okay? For me, I'm going to do EXR, which is like a Photoshop file, really high resolution, very large file as well, big file size, but it's super high quality. You can do a lot of different things though. You can just do JPEG or PNG if you want. In fact, for now, let's just do a PNG. It'll be faster. Color space, I want to use the output transform. I'm pretty sure that's the right thing. This is the output, and the output transform should make it look like this. We'll see if it does. The extension, well, this is like, if you're going to do a bunch of frames, this really matters. Name.extension, like a lot of this is a frame-based workflow, so you don't render the video, you render each individual frame for an animation, and you string them together later in another program. That's what a lot of people will do. And so this gets into that. We'll do that in another episode. For now, you can just leave that. Be sure that Cam 1 is renderable. You could leave this other one as renderable as well. It doesn't matter. It doesn't harm it. Don't have to worry about this really. Cam 1, though. We definitely want Cam 1, right? Okay, so now the render settings are good. More stuff that you can change if you want, but this is fine. We're going to get a quick PNG. Well, we'll see how quick. On Arnold Renderer, there are some settings you could change if you want up in here, and also with ray depth, which is like your ray tracing and your light. But this stuff really messes with your render time, so get into that later if you want. Again, CPU, I think, is better quality than GPU. GPU looks noisier, and you have to mess more with settings to get it to look not noisy. So if you want a nice clean image, just do CPU and go take a break, see what it looks like later. Now that we're pretty much ready, again, top left up here, change this back to rendering. Okay, up here, now you have a new menu, render menu, and go render sequence, but click the square box. And that brings up this menu right here. Change the current camera to camera 1. That's the one that you want to render. If you want, just go to, your desktop. Okay. And then click render sequence and close, or just render sequence, whatever. And it'll show you again this kind of real-time preview as it goes along. Okay, so I think it's done. I said to go to my desktop, so let me check and see if it is indeed there. Yeah, so it puts it into its own folder based on the camera. So cam 1 is the folder that it put it into. If we double click here, we have something that doesn't really look like what it's supposed to look like. Actually, the color space looks wrong too. So let's exit out of that, because that is not right. That's actually the first time I've done a render to a PNG. What I've been doing were the EXR files. I feel like that error has something to do with, if it's an error, yeah, sorry, it's under render settings, common. It's the color space using the output transform. I'm really pretty sure that's what it's supposed to be, but because I feel like it looked like more like this. Didn't you think it had that kind of color, which is like, well, not that one. Anyway, I think it looked more like this darker look, which is not right. It's really not applying the output transform. In fact, it's doing the view. I think that's a bug. You really might want to try 2019, and I'll put a disclaimer again at the beginning. Because even if you do EXR, I think it's going to be the same. TIFF is another good one that's like a really nice file, better than PNG and JPEG. But let's do PNG with not the view transform or the output, but raw. And let's just see what that looks like. So just change it to raw, and then go to render, render sequence, and let's try that now and see what it looks like. What's also goofy about this, and seems again like a big bug kind of thing to me, is that we're sitting here looking at this render view, and it's showing us what it looks like. And to me, it looks like what it looks like in the Arnold Render View inside of Maya. But then when you look at the output file, it does not. That is what I do not get, and that is what makes me think it's a bug with 2022. See, the color of the orange here is this, not this dark thing. And also not the dark stuff. I'm overriding the one from last time. Oops. Oh well. The last one was wrong, so let's see what happens. Probably should have saved too. That's one more thing I would say, is that before you do renders, I would save your session. Feels like maybe it's a little more likely to crash while it's rendering. I've had that happen a few times, so I would suggest that, honestly. And yeah, it's definitely getting an orange cast from the wall. So to fix that, you would have to make it be like a massive wall that's really far away, or have your lights not bounce off the wall, or do the background a different way. In theory, you're supposed to be able to give the camera a background color. Like by default, it's black, and it looks really cool depending on your ape, just to have a black background. In theory, you're supposed to be able to click in the attribute editor for the camera and do a background color for the camera. And that's not working for me either. So yeah, I really feel like, I don't know, 2019. Okay, let me open that folder again, see where I'm at. Same thing. It's just not right. It's just not right. So, okay. It hasn't done this all the time, but it's been doing it more recently. I'm going to go to EXR, which is, again, more like a raw file. You could go to TIFF as well. That'd be fine. But what we're going to do, the more important thing sort of, is to not, because the output is not working properly. The view is working. That's what it's supposed to do, and it's fast. Output's over here. We're going to use raw. And now TIFF, so we won't overwrite, so I can send another picture in and be like, what's up with this? Same thing though. We just changed the file format, and now we want compression like none. And then this is like bit depth. We could do 16-bit. That's higher. You can even do 32 if you want, but 16 is fine. I think Photoshop might even have trouble with those. But so now color space, change back. Raw is what we want. And then just do the same thing. Render sequence with the option to do that folder, cam1. Render sequence and close. So this just should look literally flatter, is what you would say for camera work. And we'll see how it comes out. Okay, for some reason this TIFF is taking a really, really long time to render. I don't know why it's not closing out here. Maybe it really is done. You could check in your folder. Actually, yeah, it is. It's just acting goofy right now. Again, this doesn't look right either. So I think I figured something out, because that's not even raw. I think I figured this out. One of my settings must have changed because it did not used to do this, and I certainly didn't change it. But let's close this render view window. Go back to this. Let's save too. Probably do a save as at this point, but whatever. Okay, just another weird. I haven't even tried this yet. We're gonna see if it works. Okay, what we really want to do just for a quick thing is a PNG. All right, and we want to use the output transform. Okay, which should be the way that it looks here, the Arnold Render View. What we want to do though, sorry, it's actually not over here. What we want to do though is go up to a different options window that we haven't seen yet, but it's a helpful one. You should know about it. Windows, settings, preferences, then preferences. Not color settings. That's a different menu for different color settings. But instead, Windows, settings, preferences, preferences. Click there. Now, down here under settings, you will see color management. Okay, a lot of things here. First off, you do have to enable color management. Be sure that that's enabled. Probably don't mess with anything else though, except down here. Output color transform preferences. Apply output transform to renderer. Well, yeah, I think we do want that. And I think that the type though, see, this is where I don't know. Apply output transform to renderer. Let's try just doing that one. Save. Now, again, I thought that by saying the color space use output transform, they would just do this. And at one point, I did have it doing that. But let's try render sequence again. This time, we're going to do a PNG back to there. Render sequence and close. It'll just overwrite the one from earlier. Well, look at this. There we go. That's what we wanted. That is what we wanted. So there are a lot of things we could do, both with the lighting and some of the other settings to make it look even better, more high resolution. But I think this is a really good start. Again, I don't really like the lighting that I did here, but is what it is. You know what? I still feel like it looks a little bit different. No, it definitely does. It definitely looks a little bit different. So there's something going on with the color space or the color management that's not quite right here. I mean, it's late. I'm tired, but I feel like all three of these are a little bit different. These are obviously much closer. It just, again, looks kind of flat to me, too. And so this is where, if I were doing this, like, professionally, I would have to figure out why this is not quite matching. Or here's a more even kind of professional workflow. So let's talk about what I would do if I were really trying to make it look really good. EXR, no compression. and then not use output transform, raw. Okay, single frame, EXR. Now we can just go to render sequence, same camera one, same spot, render and close. So what this is going to do is make a really high resolution, much higher quality file, and it's going to be flat for sure because we did raw. Well, I think so, unless that other setting somehow overwrites it. We'll see. And then we'll take that into Photoshop. Or I even like going into Premiere just because I'm more used to that. And there's some tools that I'm just used to. So you can go to either one of those and basically just play with settings like you would a photo and get it the way you want it and then save that. So I don't think I need to detail that process. I'll try to figure out what's going on with the color space issues and why the render isn't looking as good as they used to for me. But then I'll do a comment below. So if I figure out the color space thing, which I'm sure I will make a comment below, and I'll also talk about it in future videos where I cover animation. So thank you for joining me. You made it all the way to the end. You should definitely feel a nice sense of accomplishment and know that you have a new skill. And there's a lot of other tutorials out there you can use to get even better. And I'll have more as well. So thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Okay, so we're definitely getting into the weeds here. But if you're a perfectionist like me, probably go and look at some other videos on color space and color management in Maya. I don't know how I had it before that this view really perfectly matched whatever I got rendered out. Right now, I still am not convinced it's the exact same. Feel like there's a difference here in the oranges and just and generally the contrast too. But I did get it closer, and here's one of the ways you can look at some options for this stuff if you are so inclined. Here in the Arnold Render View, okay, there's a gear setting right here. Click the gear, and this shows you settings for this window. Oops, I guess they're over here. Okay, yeah, view transform. So I think that means that what we're seeing this through right now is this ACES, which is a color management workflow, like one of the newest ones. I don't really know much about it, but that's what it is. If we were to go to raw right here, yeah, look at that. So the thing is, if you want this to match perfectly, you would have to use this view transform ACES on your output. And so right here, it's just literally doing it just for this render view here, right? ACES. Oh, maybe you can change the background color like this too. I wonder what happens if... hang on. That's a different thing. Sorry. But another thing for you to look at. Maybe there's another way to do that background. Okay, anyway. ACES is our view transform that's on this window. But if you go up here to render and then render settings. No, I'm sorry. You have to go back over to Windows, Settings, Preferences, not color settings. Although we may need to look at that too. Windows, Settings, Preferences. Now come down to color management. Okay, so again, we want to enable color management. The rendering space is ACES, right, which matches here, rendering space ACES. The display is sRGB. Let's see, this gets harder. View ACES SDR-video, which matches this perfectly. So if we could have our way, we'd like to use the view ACES SDR-video as our output. Down here, output color transform preferences. Apply output transform to renderer. Transform type. View transform. ACES SDR-video. Right? So I changed that so that it matched this here. Transform type. View transform. So if we did color space conversion, it might look different. But what I did was view transform. I changed ACES here to be the output to match this one so that it most closely matches what we've been seeing. I mean, of all the ones that we've looked at, I do think this one is the one that most closely matches. And it is in... it is a PNG, right? So if I did a more high quality one, the color might match even better. Still doesn't look quite as good. So again, it's up to you, but there's a lot to get into here if you really want to get picky about your color. Because because you could go raw or all kinds of other things here, which is great. But see, what if it just did use view transform? So I think that probably is what I had originally. I'm going to do save and try one more time. So instead of a PNG, though, I want to do the EXR file, no compression, and I want to do, yeah, EXR with no compression. Still my single frame. So let's try now. Render sequence, cam 1, and let's render this one now. I don't think render sequence and close is working because it's not closing it when it's done, but whatever. Basically, when it's 98% done, it seems to actually be done. I think this is going to work. So this really now, I think, is the end of this video. Get more into color space if you want. Watch some other tutorials and things like that. Or try to just, I don't know, look at it raw and then color it in whatever you desire. Again, thanks for watching.